It all begins on the Shanwu continent, more specifically within the demonic sect. Our protagonist is seen imprisoned, desperately pleading to be released, but the woman just smiles provocatively and makes it very clear that she's not going to let him go under any circumstances. She laughs seductively and says that today is their big wedding day, calling him her husband. The woman asks if he will leave her alone in that room. The boy's name is Zhao Mu, and he says that he is actually someone who has been reincarnated from another world. He explains that the woman obsessed with fantasies and role-playing is definitely not his wife. A year ago, he was reincarnated as the heir to a noble family and was about to marry a princess. But just when he was about to reach the pinnacle of life, he ended up being kidnapped by the demonic cult. He never imagined that becoming a prisoner would only be the beginning of his nightmare. It turns out that his special body serves as the perfect fuel for cultivation. But in that place, nobody cared about his life. It ended up becoming just a farming tool. With so much energy being constantly drained, he has now reached very close to his limit. In agony, the young man says he doesn't want to die yet, but she grabs his neck to keep him on the bed. She says with a sadistic smile that he should feel very honored to die at her hands. Then she shows him a special pill to boost his energy and force one last evolution in his art, forcing him to swallow the pill against his will. She mocks him, saying his death will be worth it, while the young man tries to scream to be released. He wonders if he's really going to end up dying in an embarrassing way, without ever having seen the world. Even with little strength left, he exclaims that he will not give up. A mysterious screen appears, announcing the system's awakening. He speaks with enthusiasm, saying he waited a whole year for this. The system promises to multiply anything he donates by tens of thousands of times. As compensation for the delay, the system guarantees that the first donation will yield the maximum return. Now, with a confident smile, he decides to put his pride aside and agrees to teach her a lesson. The villain is surprised by his sudden change in attitude and lets out a startled sigh. She smiles mischievously and tells him not to go easy on her during the night. Determined to seize the opportunity the heavens have given him, the boy lunges at her. He knows this is his only opportunity to take control of his future. The fox says that on that night, she belongs only to him. The following morning, the sun shines on the beautiful river that cuts through the territory of the demonic sect. The next day, the protagonist is found completely exhausted. Meanwhile, she stretches after a long night of cultivation. She compliments him, saying that his performance the previous night was excellent despite his low energy. Before leaving, she warns him that if he survives, she'll come back so they can have even more fun. Even after falling, the young man smiles victoriously, knowing that his plan worked. The system is activated by multiplying the lost energy, giving it a sacred body and the highest level of refinement. He boasts about his newly conceived body, but he soon calms down, realizing he still needs to act cautiously and avoid drawing attention. If they discover his secret, he knows his fate in the sect will be worse than before. While getting dressed, he decides to take advantage of the anonymity to accumulate as much power as possible in the shortest amount of time. The young man plans to obtain spiritual stones by doing extra work for the senior female disciples, but he soon realizes he needs to think big now that he has the help of a system. He knows that most of those girls are poor and starts looking for a more profitable method. Something captures your attention for a moment. That's when he spots his acquaintance Wang Chan engrossed in his meditation. He recalls receiving a lot of help from Wang Chan in the beginning and decides to repay the kindness. His plan is to donate all his savings to his friend to activate the system's multiplier return. Wang Chan loses his focus after being hit on the head with a plastic bag. He picks up the confused object and realizes with surprise that the small bag is completely full of spiritual stones. The boy grinned from ear to ear, thinking that one of the sex masters had finally recognized his hard work in training. Meanwhile, Zhao Mu's system reports that his donation has generated a return of 500 times the initial donation. His rewards rain down upon him as he celebrates gaining 100,000 spirit stones with almost no effort. But he knows this is only the beginning and plans to use this power to get revenge on everyone who humiliated him in the past. He wonders if giving up his own rewards would make the system work again. Suddenly, a rain of spiritual stones begins to fall upon Wang Chan. The young man is completely bewildered and thanks heaven for having found such a generous benefactor all of a sudden. Wang Shan promises to do his best, while Zhao Mu silently observes everything from afar. He realizes that the system has not reacted in any way, confirming that it is not possible to cheat using the same stones. At that moment, a familiar voice calls him Junior Brother, making the boy turn around startled. The girl is surprised to see that he is still alive. Zhao Mu recognizes her as Lu Qi and is immediately surprised by the unexpected visit. Zhao Mu is reminded of the seductive image of his demon concubine who nearly ended his life. He then regains his composure and greets his senior sister. In his thoughts, he explains that Lu Qi is also an external disciple who, like the others, cultivates the dangerous, mystical art of yin. She used to take very good care of him at first, but distanced herself after receiving a very clear warning from Chu Jiarun. The girl compliments his recent progress, but the boy tries to downplay it, saying it was all just pure luck. She loses her patience and grabs the boy's hand, telling him to stop that nonsense once and for all. She reveals that her rival has gone into isolation, and that now it's his turn to help her advance in her own cultivation. The young woman summons her giant sword, which begins to float, and authoritatively orders him to climb onto it. With little choice, the boy climbs onto the sword and clings tightly to the girl's waist, begging her to slow down. Lu Qi is puzzled by his sudden change in energy and asks if he received some kind of gift from that seductive fox. The senior warns him that, if he continues to stay with that demon, he will end up having his entire life drained away. She then blushes and reveals that she plans to challenge her rival, and that if she wins, the young man will belong only to her. Zhao Mu moves even closer and accepts the invitation while internally wondering why everyone calls him that. The two continue flying swiftly on their swords toward the imposing temples in the inner part of the sect. Once inside the room, she promises to give him a valuable vitality pill if he helps her with the cultivation. The beautiful young woman tells him to sit down and bluntly informs him that she's going to take a quick shower before they begin. Alone in his room, the boy smiles confidently, knowing he has everything under control thanks to his system. Meanwhile, Lu begins to prepare to enter the hot tub that is already steaming in the room. She slowly enters the warm water, relaxing her body after the stressful journey they had made to get there. The girl takes a deep breath, lost in thought, and whispers to herself that this time nothing will stop her from achieving her goal. Suddenly, Zhao Mu appears right behind her in a white robe, leaving the poor girl completely terrified. He gets into the bathtub without ceremony, saying that time is precious and that taking a bath together is much faster. Without wasting any time, the young man hugs her affectionately from behind and says that the time has finally come for them to begin. Mystical energy begins to flow intensely through the water, and both are impressed by each other's incredible strength. The two surrender to the moment of cultivation, while the bathwater continues to churn with all that heat. After the intense cultivation session, the boy relaxes in the bathtub while the girl appears completely exhausted. She gets embarrassed and tells him not to talk about what happened, but the young man just jokes about it in a very casual way. But the mood suddenly changes when the young woman reveals with a sad look that her wedding is scheduled for soon. The young man is shocked to hear the groom's name and is frightened because he already knows the man's terrible reputation. This is an extremely powerful warrior and considered a legendary genius of that demonic sect. Zhao Mu panics when he realizes he has just become involved with the fiancé of an extremely dangerous man. The girl calms him down by revealing the secret that her fiancé ended up becoming a eunuch after failing a training exercise. She tenderly confesses that she only gave him her innocence because she truly likes him very much. Hearing those heartfelt words, the young man gazed intently at her, overcome by a powerful wave of emotion. Unable to resist his feelings, he pulls her into a passionate kiss. The affection intensifies, sealing once and for all the mutual complicity that was born between the two in that bathtub. He says she's very close to advancing and suggests they keep trying while the senior calls him silly. Time passes and the day dawns peacefully in the beautiful gardens of the inner part of the demonic sect. In the room, Lu Qi appears resting soundly on the bed, completely exhausted from all that training. The young man realizes that the system has been activated and prepares to receive 800 times the return for his donated energy. A strong golden energy surrounds your body, indicating that the strength of your sacred body has increased dramatically. He celebrates reaching the foundation stage and realizes that soon he will no longer have to fear anyone. Satisfied with the result of all his effort, the boy looks back and sees that his senior is still sleeping. He tries to wake her up gently and asks where the reward she promised before they started is. With great reluctance, the young woman hands over the bottle, complimenting the young man and saying she needs to sleep a little more because she's so exhausted. Upon opening the small bottle, the boy is surprised to find that she was generous and gave him 10 pills at once. He gives a sly smile and immediately begins to plot a perfect plan to take advantage of those valuable pills. The young man thinks that since he needs to donate things to activate the system, his own senior lying there is the perfect target. He then gently places one of the vitality pills in her mouth without the girl noticing anything. The system confirms the donation and informs that it has activated the 30-fold multiplier, earning an even better pill. However, the boy finds the result a bit weak and complains about only getting one response out of 30 attempts. Remembering that there are still many attempts left, he decides to risk everything, hoping to get a much higher multiplier. While sleeping, young Lu Q cutely chews on the pill, completely unaware of what's happening inside. At that same instant, an enormous power spreads through her body, indicating that the new donation had yielded a return of 3,000 times. The boy is extremely happy to receive a valuable level 7 bone marrow cleansing pill as a prize. He admires the object's green glow and celebrates, knowing that this rare item will help him evolve much faster. The main benefit of this special item is to permanently improve the physical fitness and bone structure of the young person. He knows that despite being talented, he still needs much more power to surpass the geniuses of the sect. Determined to reach the absolute top, the boy puts the mystical pill in his mouth, ready to absorb its energy. As soon as he swallows it, he feels a terrifying amount of medicinal power begin to burn throughout his body. Knowing he can't waste any time, the boy quickly sits in a lotus position to refine all that strength. A colossal column of golden flames erupts around him as his spiritual energy is completely purified. Lu Qi wakes up complaining about the bad smell of the eliminated impurities and tells the boy to go take a shower as quickly as possible. With his body invigorated, he walks to the door and uses some of his newfound spiritual energy to open it. Underwater, he takes the opportunity to relax and clean off all the dirt expelled during his incredible level up. The senior observes him in shock, realizing that the young man managed to reach the foundation establishment's realm so quickly. She touches his chest suspiciously, saying that evolution alone wouldn't be enough to purify the body so thoroughly. The boy becomes tense knowing that it would be impossible to explain to her how he suddenly obtained such a rare pill. To disguise his true intentions, he says that their success is due to their training, but notes that the senior player has not yet been able to advance. With a seductive look, he suggests that perhaps he needs to try even harder to help her for free once more. She calls him crazy, but the young man insists, saying that he's doing everything just so she can achieve her goal quickly. The senior ends up surrendering to the moment and feels an absurd amount of mystical energy invade her entire body. After finishing, he calmly gets dressed and says he's leaving so she can focus on her spiritual growth. Walking back, the boy is impressed by the lightness of his body thanks to his new and incredible level of power. He He smiles with determination, thinking that as soon as he gets a flying sword, he will be able to travel all over the world. He then decides to go to the bustling outer sect market to look for some interesting items to buy. On site, he uses his spirit stones, and the seller hands him a mysterious box, thanking him for the purchase. This is a beautiful flying sword made of meteoric iron capable of absorbing the powerful energy of the stars. He keeps the gun knowing it cost a fortune, but is eager to see the return he will get by donating it to someone. Suddenly, a loud voice calls him, "Pretty face," from behind, making the boy look back confused. He encounters New T, a huge demon with bull horns who is accompanied by several armed henchmen. The young man recalls that the big guy is one of the demon fox's suitors and that he always tried to start fights in the past. Nuta possesses the blood of the bold demon, and the boy realizes that he is the ideal opponent to test his newfound strength. The monster grabs the young man's collar furiously, demanding to know if he has met with his beloved again. As Omu grabs his arm back with a sarcastic look and mockingly asks what would happen if it were true. Completely furious at the boy's audacity, the demon clenches his fist, concentrating all his terrible destructive energy. New T lunges forward, delivering a devastating punch fueled by fury, ordering the boy to go straight to hell. To everyone's surprise, Zhao Mu blocks the demon's deadly attack with just one hand without even moving. With mockery, the boy says he prefers to stay alive and shocks the monster by revealing his cultivation level. Furious, the bold demon channels all his crimson strength, shouting that the young man will never reach his level. He then unleashes an insane sequence of high-speed punches, attempting to crush Zhao Mu once and for all. Zhao Mu dodges all blows with extreme ease and taunts, saying that his opponent's speed is too slow. He is impressed by the power of his sacred body, which allows him to toy with one of the 100 strongest warriors in the sect. The young man warns that the nonsense is over and lands a precise blow that sends the big guy flying backward. Focusing his spiritual energy, the boy prepares to deliver a powerful punch to end the fight. The terrible blow hits the demon squarely in the face, causing it to spit blood as it is violently thrown to the ground. The henchmen are in despair when they see their leader knocked out and can't understand how that boy got so strong. One of them tries to threaten him by talking about New T's powerful family, but the boy simply thanks them for the warning. To avoid future problems, he draws his new flying sword and commands it to attack without hesitation. The lackey lets out a cry of terror as he sees the gleaming blade pass close before his eyes. Zhao Mu calmly walks away, throwing the valuable sword to them, saying it will serve to pay for the medical expenses. At that same instant, the system screen appears confirming that your donation has triggered a 1,000-fold return. The system rewards him with a level 5 sword, but the young man finds the prize mediocre and complains a bit. The henchmen flee carrying the wounded boss, but continue to stare at the boy with intense hatred and resentment. In an act of desperation, the two lackeys leap onto the young man's back, attempting a surprise attack. But with a grim look, the boy turns around, warning that they shouldn't blame him for acting ruthlessly. A huge, brilliant burst of blue energy cuts through the air, heading towards the two reckless attackers. The henchmen fall to their knees, wounded and crying in pain, unable to understand where that swift attack came from. That's when a beautiful young woman in green robes appears, carrying a heavy sword on her back and laughing at their situation. Her name is Mu Juling. She directly accuses them, saying that she witnessed the cowardly attack attempt with her own eyes. Relieved by the intervention, the boy scratches his head with a friendly smile as the girl approaches him. But soon the young woman starts scolding the boy, complaining that he was too careless during the fight. She teaches that with enemies, one must be ruthless and eliminate evil at its root, scaring away the henchmen who hear everything. Irritated by the intrusion, they try to yell at her, asking who she thinks she is to speak like that. With a terrifying look, she reveals her name, leaving the two idiots completely paralyzed with fear. They begin to tremble from head to toe when they realize that the girl is the legendary and dangerous Mu Juling. In a panic, the cowards flee, running desperately, swearing they had nothing to do with the whole mess. Mu Juling then turns back to Zhao Mu, pointing her finger firmly and leaving the young man confused. She gets so close that she ends up her chest against his in an extremely intimate and provocative way. Blushing, she asks if he's forgotten that all he has to do is say her name to scare away anyone who tries to attack him. The young woman says with relief that if he died, she would have no one else to marry in the future. The boy smiles awkwardly, remembering that this girl has always had her eye on him ever since she joined the cult. He realizes that her interest isn't in his power, but rather because she finds him extremely handsome. But despite looking cute, she is a ruthless warrior and highly respected within the entire demonic sect. Zhao Mu thinks that the other disciples would never imagine that this feared warrior possesses such a sweet side. He gently pinches her cheek, telling her not to worry because he's much harder to kill than he looks. Delighted with the affection, she firmly holds the boy's hand and excitedly pulls him along, telling him to follow her somewhere. Suddenly, the young woman uses her mystical power and begins to fly through the skies, taking the boy with her. Zhao Mu is impressed to notice that she can fly without a sword, something only powerful cultivators can do. The young man watches her, intrigued, wondering what the true and terrifying level of power of that girl might be. The two land smoothly in a beautiful valley, leaving a trail of red flames in their wake. Upon arriving, the boy is impressed by the immense spiritual energy of the place and wonders this is sacred ground. She opens the door of her modest wooden house and invites him in, revealing that this place is her home. He enters curiously, seeing several shelves full of books, and she explains that she uses the place only to relax and read. Without the slightest shyness, the young woman throws herself happily onto her soft bed, letting out a sigh of relief. She looks back with a teasing smile and asks why he's still standing there, telling her to come closer. He tells the girl not to try anything funny with him because his self-control is extremely limited. She blushes and calls him a womanizer, asking what kind of nonsense he's thinking at that moment. Next, the young woman hands two mystical books to the boy, beginning a new training. The books contain legendary sword control techniques that are extremely difficult to master. He is surprised and asks how she knew he wanted to learn that sword control technique. The girl then also presents him with a level 4 flying ice sword called Frost Blade. She explains that the cold sword will help contain his fire energy, saving the young man from thinking nonsense. The girl tells the boy to stay there training while she takes care of other important matters outside. She concludes by saying that she will arrange for his promotion from servant disciple to external disciple of the sect. Seeing such generosity, the young man stares at her, intrigued, wondering who she really is in that place. With a beautiful smile, she playfully replies that she is the person he will marry one day. The chalet door slams shut, leaving the boy alone with his own thoughts inside the room. He gives a silly smile, admitting to himself that that girl really knows how to flirt with a man. The boy decides to push away romantic thoughts and focuses on reading mystical sword control manuals. He sits in the lotus position and begins to concentrate intensely, trying to absorb all the secrets of the art. Hours later, the young man collapses to the floor exhausted, complaining about how extremely difficult that control technique is. He realizes that the mystical pill only improved his physical fitness, but not his capacity for understanding. Worried, the boy begins to confide in a small, cute, mystical creature that is nearby about his problem. The little animal stops chewing its grass and looks at him with a confused expression, not understanding anything. Suddenly, he has a brilliant idea and thinks that teaching knowledge should also activate the system's feedback. With a frightening look, he approaches the creature, offering to teach it to read and do arithmetic. The young man begins teaching the animal the multiplication tables, and the system is activated with a return of 100 times. He is extremely surprised and happy to see that the plan worked and his ability to understand has increased. With his mind much sharper, he returns to meditating, focused on understanding the scrolls of that difficult technique. The young man's eyes shine brightly, showing that he has finally begun to unravel the secrets of the technique. He smiles proudly as he realizes he can now learn any complex technique instantly. Even though he is satisfied with the progress, he knows that this level of understanding is still not enough for his plan. The boy then looks again at the mystical creature, which begins to tremble with fear as it senses his intentions. The young man smiles mischievously and says he will teach the poor little animal complex geometry theorems. He sets up a whiteboard full of complex calculations, and the system further enhances his intelligence after class. The boy discovers that he has reached the maximum intelligence limit allowed for his current strength level. He celebrates knowing that with his brilliant mind, deciphering any training scroll will no longer be a problem. The boy begins to test new techniques and delivers a devastating punch using the legendary Vajra fist technique. Then he summons red lightning, scaring the little creature while mastering yet another combat technique. He studies the arts of fortune, telling, and creates a huge golden magic circle on the library floor. But the boy soon realizes that those techniques are of a very low level and decides to look for something stronger. He has the brilliant idea of memorizing the basic books so he can later donate everything and win prizes from the system. Suddenly, the mystical creature runs towards the boy, carrying a small gray bone in its mouth to give to him. He pets the little animal's head and asks if that mysterious bone is really a gift for him. The young man accepts the gift, thanking his companion and jokingly saying he will use the bone to make soup. But upon touching the object, he feels a purple energy emanating from it and discovers that it is an ancient technique. He is surprised to realize that the small animal has hidden such a valuable secret inside that modest bone. The system starts forcing automatic learning of the technique, causing the boy to experience a terrible headache. He falls to his knees, spitting a lot of blood onto the ground, leaving the small mystical animal completely desperate. The boy realizes that even with his intelligence at the highest level, he still lacks the ability to understand the technique. He stares thoughtfully at the object on the ground, wondering if that divine technique is of a celestial level. At that moment, young Mu Juling opens the door and is shocked to see the boy lying on the floor with blood in his mouth. Feeling guilty, she apologizes, thinking he hurt himself trying to practice the difficult techniques she taught him. She says he shouldn't rush to evolve and brings a basket of tasty food for them to eat together. With an extremely gentle and affectionate look, the young woman picks up the chopsticks and asks to feed him. Zhao Mu is fed while wondering if Mu Juling's presence might be a great opportunity for him. He decides to donate the mysterious bone to her to see if the item can somehow be useful in her farming. The girl asks where he got it and recognizes with surprise the legendary mystical art of chaos schwamming. At this point, the young man's system is activated, confirming the donation with an incredible multiplier of 60 times. As a reward, he ends up gaining the Earth-leveled technique called Yang Shuaming's Pure Art. The boy is surrounded by a strong golden flame as he absorbs all the knowledge from the mystical scroll. The system detects perfect compatibility with your sacred body and accepts the immediate activation of the power. He hopes the process will be quick so as not to raise any suspicion on Mu Juling's part. Suddenly, the young woman starts complaining furiously, saying that she almost lost her future husband because of an animal. She explains with relief that, fortunately, he didn't try to cultivate the technique because it possesses attributes of chaos. The girl warns that the technique would conflict with his body and could have destroyed his meridians. Zhao Mu finally understands the danger and realizes that the problem wasn't his lack of intelligence. She promises to find techniques suitable for his special body and suggests that he use basic martial arts first. The young man suspiciously asks what she is plotting, and the beautiful young woman replies that her intentions are obvious. With a very sweet and passionate smile, she approaches him, asking him to surrender to her charms right away. She assures him that if he becomes her partner, he will have the best possible life in the cult, and no one will dare touch him. But a powerful and intimidating voice screams, cutting through the mood and leaving the two frightened inside the room. a colossal beam of purple energy falls from the sky, destroying part of the ceiling with absurd force. The girl screams the boy's name as a terrible spiritual pressure forces them to kneel on the ground. The young man senses the oppressive aura and wonders in fear who could possess such monstrous power. The girl is shocked to see her master appear on the scene, and Yahello despairs at the woman's presence. The mystical and powerful mistress observes the entire scene with a cold gaze and expresses her displeasure. The powerful leader asks ironically if her presence ended up spoiling their pleasant atmosphere. Juling immediately kneels in respect as Yahello remains pressed to the ground. The teacher says that she was her favorite disciple and that she intended to make her the great saint of that sect. But the woman complains that the young woman prefers to waste time playing with a lowly servant disciple in her room. The boy realizes that this powerful woman is the saint of the sect and understands where her great confidence comes from. The repentant young woman bows to the ground, begging for forgiveness and admitting that she made a grave mistake. The ruthless leader says she will only give her one chance to redeem herself and summons a sharp sword. She throws the weapon on the ground and orders the girl to kill Yahello with her own hands to sever their ties once and for all. Juling tries to defend the boy by hugging the master's leg and saying that he is not to blame for anything. She cries desperately, stating that her cultivation mind would be destroyed forever if she killed her beloved. The powerful mistress stares at her with a grim look and angrily asks if she is trying to threaten her. A colossal wave of purple energy crushes them both to the ground, causing them both terrible pain. Yahello realizes that the saint is willing to kill her own disciple and decides he needs to act fast. He begins to release an intense golden flame, surprising the girl with that change in attitude. The young man hugs her from behind and tells her to immediately gather all of his spiritual energy to save herself. The saint is shocked to realize that the boy possesses the extremely rare and legendary sacred Bodhi of Red Yang. Yahello gives a confident smile and praises the powerful leader's sharp vision as she recognizes her new lineage. The woman admits to herself that the young man has immense potential and that her disciple's choice makes sense. Upon seeing his power, the young woman hugs him excitedly, saying that she would have tied him to the bed if she had known this before. The teacher coughs awkwardly, causing the girl to hurriedly apologize for speaking without thinking. The leader decides to spare the boy's life for now, solely for the sake of her precious disciple's future. She orders him to return to the outside sector for training and forbids him from seeing the girl for a good while. The saint flies away carrying the disciple and warns that he can only look for her after reaching the kingdom of the nascent soul. The boy is left alone in the valley, impressed by the woman's strength, and knows she could kill him with a single thought. Filled with rage and determination, he puts his hand to his head, knowing he needs to become even more powerful. The young man returns, walking calmly towards the bustling and humble lodging of the servant disciples. Upon entering his simple room, he can finally breathe a sigh of relief after surviving that ordeal. He smiles, summoning his new treasures and celebrating having acquired an excellent sword and an incredible technique. Yahello sits comfortably on his bed and commands the system to begin the spiritual strengthening process. Suddenly, an intense golden flame erupts around his body, initiating the power evolution process. He is impressed by the speed of the evolution and realizes that his new technique combines very well with his sacred body. The system warns that the surrounding energy is very weak and asks if it wants to absorb extra power for farming. Without thinking twice, the young man touches the floating screen, confirming that he wants to start absorbing energy. He looks to the side in surprise and sees that the spirit stones he was guarding are beginning to float all over the room. All the stones begin to melt and release a colossal amount of pure mystical energy in your direction. Yahello joyfully celebrates as he feels that torrent of spiritual power flow directly into his body. Night falls over the peaceful servant's quarters while the boy remains focused on his mystical evolution. Hours pass and the young man continues meditating patiently surrounded by that sea of warm, golden flames. Upon opening his eyes, he realizes with a start that he had spent 70,000 spirit stones in just one night. Despite the enormous loss, he smiles with satisfaction at having reached the third level of foundation establishment. The boy leaves the room stretching and thinks that now he needs to find a new way to make money. Suddenly a loud, intimidating voice shouts his name from behind, causing the boy to stop walking. The bully Hu Chuang shows up with his henchman and provocatively asks about the benefits the young man received. With a sadistic and malicious smile, the big guy suggests that he should share some of these gifts with his brothers. The boy recalls that Hu Qiang is known for committing crimes in the lodging and that he even killed another servant who challenged him. Zhao Mu grins mockingly and asks the bully if he also kept many valuable stones from his robberies. Irritated by the boy's audacity, the giant leaps towards him, delivering a violent punch with tiger claws. But Zhao Mu dodges the blow with extreme ease and mocks him, saying that his movements are too slow. The young man lands a direct and devastating punch right in the enemy's face, causing a lot of blood to splatter across the courtyard. The big guy falls backward, groaning in pain, into the arms of the henchman, who desperately asks if he's all right. Wiping the blood from his mouth, the bully stares at him, unable to believe that the young servant actually managed to hurt him. Xiao Mu simply smiles confidently while displaying his immense aura and asks if his power evolution is as obvious as it seems. Furious, the leader orders his two henchmen to stop looking and commands them to attack together without any mercy. Muscular thugs unleash a powerful green energy and advance, determined to end the boy's life. Using his godlike speed, the young man dodges the giant's simultaneous punches with almost no effort. The other servants watching from afar are impressed by the increase in power, but ask him to be very careful. The young man takes a deep breath, concentrating an absurd amount of reddish spiritual energy at his fingertips. With a swift movement, he unleashes a shockwave that hurls the two brutes away once and for all. Suddenly, a huge tiger monster emerges, leaping from the shadows behind the boy, attempting to attack him by surprise. The creature roars, ordering the boy straight to hell while delivering a blow with its powerful claws. But the hero merely looks back with a defiant grin and prepares his right fist, brimming with red energy. The young man unleashes a devastating counterattack that hits the tiger squarely in the face, causing the monster to spit out a lot of blood. The terrifying impact throws the savage monster directly against the body of one of the henchmen lying on the ground. Badly injured, the tiger man tries to get up and roars angrily, threatening the boy and saying that he will pay for it. Impatient with threats, Zhao Mu stomps hard on the enemy's head, making it abundantly clear who's in charge. With a terrifying look, he orders the monster to shut up once and for all while displaying his immense presence of power. The crowd goes wild and thanks the hero for teaching a lesson to the tyrants who always stole from everyone in the village. The young man uses his mystical power to levitate a large bag of precious stones that was being kept by the bully. He displays the large bag and cheerfully announces to everyone that he will return each of the stolen stones to their owners. The boy throws the bag high into the air, scattering a veritable shower of bright, colorful crystals over the crowd. People celebrate wildly, laughing and jumping for joy as they collect all the mystical stones that fall from the sky. The system confirms the donation of 9,000 spirit stones and gives it the incredible return of 9 million crystals. Xiao Mu then approaches his friend Wang Chan and hands him a refining pill as a token of gratitude. The companion is extremely embarrassed by the gift and tries to refuse it, saying that the item is too valuable. Impatient, the hero simply throws the mystical pill into his friend's mouth, ordering him to swallow it all at once. The system confirms the donation of the simple pill and gives Zhao Mu a valuable, higher-level pill in return. Wang Chan warns him that the defeated enemies have powerful allies and tells him to find a protector within the sect. Zhao Mu thoughtfully agrees with the advice, knowing that this is exactly his plan to survive in that place. He arrives at the outer sect's management hall to begin his plan. Inside, a man controls the flames of a large cauldron using mystical cultivation techniques. This is Jiang Dinkin, the outer sect manager, who seems totally focused on his work. Zhao Mu enters respectfully and greets the manager, introducing himself as a polite disciple. The manager just stares at him in silence, with a rather cold and unfriendly expression. Then he makes a movement with his fingers, directing the strong flames towards the mystical furnace. Suddenly the cauldron explodes violently, leaving the manager furious and frightening the young hero. The man begins to cough heavily amidst the gray smoke that has spread throughout the room. He immediately blames Zhao Mu, saying that the boy ruined the refinery and orders him to leave. Zhao Mu realizes that the old man deliberately ruined the refinement to create an excuse and complicate his life. The manager insists he leave, but the boy asks him to remain calm while he prepares a brilliant surprise. The boy offers 50,000 spirit stones, causing the man to spit out his tea in astonishment. The old man changes his attitude immediately and agrees to register the young man's license plate with a big smile on his face. Taking advantage of the moment, the young man asks who was behind the attempt to prevent his promotion in the sect. Jiang Dinkin hesitates, saying that he only solves problems for money and doesn't usually betray his clients. Zhao Mu shows even more bags of spirit stones, making the manager's eyes almost pop out of their sockets. The man feigns a cough and discreetly asks the young man to come closer and listen to the secret. He uses his fingers to draw a mysterious name using small stones on the hall floor. The boy is shocked to discover that the mastermind behind everything is actually the powerful Chu Jiren. He knows she controls everything in the outer sect and that he'll soon be caught if he keeps messing around there. The young man thanks him for the valuable information, while the old man pretends that none of that happened. Then he climbs onto his flying sword and takes off at high speed, cutting through the skies of the sect. The boy decides that the best course of action now is to find Lu Kai and hide in her residence temporarily. He flies swiftly towards the large buildings constructed among the sacred mountains. Upon arriving, he notices with surprise two men leaving his ally's room in the middle of the night. This is the elder Lu Haikong accompanied by the young prodigy and pride of the Long Tiangxiang sect. The elder happily comments that the covenant marriage between the two should be planned as soon as possible. The young prodigy agrees, saying he will marry her soon after winning the big hunting competition. Zhao Mu observes everything from afar and silently mocks the situation, knowing the truth about the girl. As soon as the men leave, he lowers his sword and gently knocks on the door, calling for her. Lu Qiu quickly opens the door with a very happy look upon seeing her beloved junior brother arrive. The boy asks about the marriage proposal, and the girl angrily says she hates even hearing his name. She sits on his lap in an intimate and affectionate way, asking the reason for his surprise visit. He explains with an awkward smile that everything happened because of that shrew who barred him from the sect. Furious, the young woman reveals that she has already reached the core formation level and intends to challenge her soon. She quickly changes her tone and thanks the boy, saying that her rapid progress is entirely due to him. The young man says he won't be able to control his red yang power if she keeps provoking him like this. With a provocative smile, the girl asks him to help her with intimate cultivation while she begins to take off her clothes. The two of them lose themselves there in the passion of the night. Time passes peacefully as the petals fall, revealing the end of the romantic moment. Exhausted but quite satisfied, the girl falls into a deep sleep, resting after the long cultivation. The system notifies the return 50 times, but the young man stretches, finding the increase in energy insignificant. The system explains that cultivating too often with the same person causes the rewards to decrease. He reflects on the rule, realizing that focusing on only one partner reduces the benefits of the system. The young man thinks the best solution would be to find more senior sisters to cultivate and increase returns. He smiles, convinced that his brilliant line of reasoning is absolutely correct for his future. Putting those thoughts aside, he focuses on meditating surrounded by floating spiritual stones. With rapid advancement, he can easily reach the 3rd and 4th levels of the foundation establishment. However, the boy notices with frustration that his stones ran out before he can even reach the 5th level. He realizes that his sacred body consumes too many resources and that he will need to accumulate accumulate much more wealth. It all begins when Xiaomu notices a strange shadow moving outside his window. He gets curious and opens the window to see what's happening there at that moment. Suddenly, a figure appears right in front of him, leaving the boy completely shocked. The young man realizes that the unexpected visitor is none other than the powerful saint of the sect. She asks to be called only An Zixuan, while gazing at him with a superior look. Zhao Mu smiles and asks what the special reason would be for her to come looking for him in the middle of the night. The saint remains silent for a moment, analyzing the boy's physique in a very direct way. She reaches out and touches his abdomen, seeming very interested in his vital energy. And Zixuan reveals that she wishes to use his pure young power to aid her in her own cultivation. The boy moves away slightly, trying to prevent her from continuing with that close contact. He attempts to argue that harvesting techniques are not efficient in the later stages. Irritated by the refusal, she releases an overwhelming purple aura that makes the air feel heavy. Zhao Mu feels a terrible spiritual pressure that throws him against the bed without a chance to react. The saint orders him to stop talking nonsense and say now whether or not he is willing to obey. With no choice, he accepts, thinking that in the future he will still get his revenge on this arrogant woman. The young man asks which positions she prefers so that he can better cooperate with the harvest. And Zixuan is visibly embarrassed by the bold comment and turns her face away to hide it. She opens a mystical portal and warns him not to ask unnecessary questions about what will happen. In the blink of an eye, the portal begins to glow intensely, transporting the two to another place. They arrive at the dwelling of the Purple Sky Cave, a secluded place where she usually meditates. The saint walks ahead and tells the boy to follow her without hesitation into the house. She explains that the place is safe and that no one will be able to interrupt what they are doing there. Zhao Mu starts taking off his clothes to cooperate, but the girl is frightened by his behavior. She says he doesn't need to undress because she's already prepared everything in her own way. The boy laughs, thinking she's the type who likes to take the initiative in every situation. Suddenly, he is gagged by a white band that prevents him from continuing to say anything. Furthermore, he ends up being tied to a pillar while the saint begins to remove his clothes. She orders him to close his eyes and cooperate with the cultivation, or he will suffer the grave consequences. Then the young man ends up falling into a fountain of clear water and comes out completely wet. And Zixuan orders him to wash thoroughly before they begin the official energy extraction process. He wonders if it's all a dream, but the saint tells him to shut up immediately. With a mystical movement, the boy's body is levitated and launched towards the cultivation site. Zhao Mu finds himself trapped by magical bands once again, without understanding what is about to happen. He realizes that her strength is far superior and that he will not be able to resist her commands. Suddenly, the boy feels something strange touching his face and becomes totally confused. He sees two cat girls named Enlil and Yuaniwan who are watching him with mischievous looks. The young man panics, asking if they don't think he's pretty enough for his sisters. They explain that they are puppets created to extract Yang's power from him in just 2 hours. Zhao Mu gets furious at being underestimated and decides to show those tools who's boss. He grabs one of the girls forcefully, surprising the little puppet with his sudden reaction. The boy announces that he will show his true strength and begins to completely dominate the situation. The little creatures begin to beg for mercy as the hero advances, without any hesitation. The atmosphere heats up so much that the puppets become desperate, trying to make the young man stop the attack. The night passes under the light of the full moon, while the sound of cultivation echoes throughout the cave. Sitting on her throne, and Zixuan wonders how much longer that boy will be able to endure. In the end, the two puppets appear completely exhausted, while the boy relaxes peacefully. Zhao realizes that the hot spring has further increased his vigor, leaving him full of energy. The cat girls complain a lot, calling the hero a bastard for being so ruthless. They apologize to the saint, saying that the boy's physical constitution is too tyrannical. and Zixuan forgives her subordinates while trying to hide her flushed face after witnessing everything, and Zixuan dismisses his puppets, ordering them to leave the sacred liquid and recover soon. The cat girls promptly obey and leave carrying the bowls containing the purified essence of the hero. While getting dressed, Jiamu observes the saint from afar, trying to understand what she will do with all of this. He asks if she liked his performance, but the girl coldly replies that it was only average. Even so, she throws a reward to the boy who catches the bag of spirit stones in mid-air with agility. The young man is amazed to see that he has won 10 million stones and 4 vials of high-level pills. He leaves very satisfied and praises the saint's generosity as he prepares to leave the cave. And Zixuan asks why he's still standing there and tells the boy to stop staring blankly into space like a fool. Xiaomu suggests that the effect would be much better if they did a direct double cultivation without the puppets. The saint becomes visibly irritated and her face flushes because of the audacity of that presumptuous disciple. Impatient, she opens a portal and orders him to disappear from her sight at that very moment. A bright purple light envelopes the hero, who is rapidly transported away from the sacred cave. Suddenly, Zhao Mu reappears in the room, leaving the person inside completely confused. He realizes he's back beside Lu Qi, admires the saint's unbelievable transportation methods. The system indicates that the energy contribution has greatly improved your sacred body of red yang. The boy begins to meditate, feeling an immense power flowing through every part of his renewed being. He confirms his theory that varying cultivation partners brings much greater rewards from the system. The hero smiles, thinking that having the saint dependent on his energy will guarantee his safety within the sect. Meanwhile, and Zixuan observes the shimmering liquid in her hands, looking very thoughtful. She hopes that the essence of that cheeky boy will truly be worthwhile for her mystical progress. Upon drinking the liquid, she ends up having vivid memories of what happened between the boy and the puppets. The saint feels the impact of the power on her body and tries to catch her breath. Her face heats up. She struggles to stay focused, telling herself that a mere servant won't affect her mind. The puppet cats notice that their mistress is distracted and wonder if the liquid has caused any side effects. The next day the sun rises, illuminating the tranquil patio of the residence where the two are staying. Lu Qi wakes up and stretches lazily, feeling refreshed after a good night's sleep. She glances to the side and sees that Zhao Mu is already awake and focused on his consistent morning training. The young woman praises her companion's diligence, who explains that he felt a sudden inspiration to make a move. She then suggests that they challenge the path of ascension to Heaven together to test their newfound strength. The location is an ancient secret kingdom of the sect where a giant portal glows with a mysterious energy. The challenge has 12 layers, and whoever reaches the 3rd layer is already ranked among the best disciples. From this stage onwards, powerful demons emerge that test the limits of any cultivator. They comment that rival Chu Jiaoran is 9th in the ranking and is able to hold her own well in the 4th layer. The young man says she doesn't need to try so hard for him, but Lu Qi claims she does it for herself. The girl wants to prove that the potential of humans is superior to that of the demonic race represented by her rival. Zhao Mu reflects on how the sect treats everyone equally, but internal disputes between races continue. He happily agrees to go together, since he now also holds the status of an official outer disciple. The two walk towards the enormous purple portal, ready to begin testing their skills. Some disciples emerge from the portal wounded and complain that the monsters on the 3rd layer are terrifying. Others praise a certain new T who has climbed several positions in the ranking and seems to be getting very strong. The man named New T boasts of his brute strength, saying it's all a result of his natural talent. Suddenly, he senses an intimidating presence behind him and realizes that Chu Daran is watching him. The villainess orders him not to forget who helped him and commands the brute to finish the task quickly. He responds with a cry of total submission, accepting the woman's orders without questioning anything at all. New T sees Zhao Mu and Lu Qi arriving at the location and decides to confront them to prove her worth to her boss. Brute mocks the boy, calling him a pretty face who lives off the hard work of his younger sister. Q counters the insult by reminding him that this pretty face had already defeated the bully in a previous altercation. The hero scorns his opponent, saying that losers shouldn't make a scene while he goes on his way. Consumed by hatred, the hulking figure unleashes his demonic energy and prepares for a devastating attack. He tries to block their path with a violent blow while yelling at them to stop right there. Zhao Mu and Q watch the shockwave as they prepare for the inevitable confrontation. The system announces that disciple Nu Tai has issued a fighting challenge, and the boy accepts with a smile. Q asks him not to accept the provocation, but the young man assures him that he knows his own limits very well. Zhao Mu suggests that a simple fight is boring and proposes that they make a bet to liven things up. The brute accepts the challenge and puts up his valuable second-grade flying sword as collateral for the wager. In exchange, the hero offers the storage ring he carries in his hand, making the atmosphere even more tense. The challenge is officially validated by the system, and the two opponents face each other with intense fury in their eyes. News of the fight spreads quickly, and several disciples approach to watch the fight in the courtyard. Some people gossip about Yang Puro's constitution and call him a disgrace to the demonic sect. Chu Jiaran suddenly appears and mocks Zhao Mu, saying he was busy with his little mistress. Qi stares at the villain with seriousness as a dark and menacing aura begins to envelop the place. The red-haired woman laughs cruelly and says that birds that try to escape should be crushed. She orders Nu Ti to use all his brute strength, and the monster promises he won't disappoint his master. The big guy unleashes an overwhelming power that makes the ground tremble and crack under the pressure of his feet. Chi screams desperately for her junior brother to be careful of the devastating attack that is coming. Nu Tai leaps towards the sky and crashes down, screaming that this will be the end of the boy's life. A gigantic explosion occurs at the moment of impact, raising a curtain of smoke and dust everywhere. Spectators are impressed by the monster's stepping technique, which has multiplied its attack power. Everyone believes Zhao Mu was quickly defeated, while Chu Jiaran celebrates his enemy's downfall. The villain sarcastically laments that he would have lived longer if he had accepted being her dog. Suddenly, she is shocked to realize that the fatal blow was blocked with incredible ease. Zhao Mu appears, firmly holding the giant's horns, preventing the attack from hitting him. Nu Ti is completely speechless when he sees that his brute strength wasn't enough to shake the young man. The hero mocks his opponent's weakness by asking if he forgot to eat before coming to the fight. Furious at the humiliation, Chu Jiaran orders her subordinate to swallow the pill she handed him immediately. The monster hesitates for a second but decides to take the mystical item to try and reverse the course of the fight. Nu Ti chews the red pill angrily as he feels a wild energy begin to burn inside him. An explosion of carnivorous flames occurs, and the big guy begins to undergo a terrifying and bizarre mutation. The opponent assumes his full minotaur form, displaying gigantic muscles and an uncontrollable fury. Zhao Mu is surprised to see that the man has actually transformed into a huge ox right in front of him. Qi accuses her rival of cheating in the duel, but the villain only smiles disdainfully at the complaint. Chu Jiaran explains that the pill serves only to stimulate the blood power that already exists in the demon race. She watches the transformation with pleasure, assuring herself that this is merely the awakening of the monster's true power. The Minotaur snorts with rage and vows to tear the boy's body to pieces until nothing is left whole. He advances with absurd speed, using an attack technique that creates several blurry shapes in his path. The people around can't even follow the ox's movements as they wonder if it has woken up. Shomu moves with ease, dodging heavy blows while maintaining a confident smile on his face. However, one of the attacks ends up tearing the hero's sleeve quickly and unexpectedly. The boy realizes that he wasn't hit directly and that only the wind pressure was able to injure him. Nu Ti violently hits the ground, creating a huge crater and scattering debris in all directions. The intense battle continues before the large portal as the two exchange attacks at insane speed. Disciples are terrified by the impact of the physical force that seems to surpass even the core formation level. The monster becomes even more enraged when it sees that its target remains standing even after so many brutal attacks. He advances again, his eyes glowing red, shouting that he won't let the hero escape this time. Zhao Mu unleashes his own golden energy and acknowledges that his opponent's strength is indeed considerable. With a dark and intimidating look, the boy prepares to launch a decisive and powerful counterattack. The two collide their fists in a direct clash of energy that makes the surrounding air vibrate intensely. The hero's fist glows intensely as he focuses all his sacred power to finish the duel. Zhao Mu lands a solid punch to the Minotaur's face, breaking his defense and causing blood to splatter. With the devastating impact, the big guy is thrown far away, rolling across the ground, completely defeated. The impact of the final blow is devastating, causing Nui to fall unconscious amidst a huge cloud of dust. Chu Jiaran watches the scene completely paralyzed and can't believe the boy won so easily. She is shocked to realize that Zhao Mu's punch was strong enough to knock out the monster with a single movement. The crowd wonders when the young man achieved foundation refinement and how his power can be so absurdly overwhelming. Lu Kai runs towards his junior brother and hugs him tightly, joyfully celebrating that heroic victory. The boy is a little embarrassed by the public affection, but the girl says she always knew of his great potential. Meanwhile, the villainess stares at her fallen subordinate with deep contempt and calls him useless trash for losing the fight. She orders the others to take the wounded man away immediately, while everyone watches the fury of the woman in red. But Zhao Mu shouts for them to wait a moment, leaving Niu Ti's henchmen extremely tense and worried. The subordinates tremble with fear and ask what more he wants now that their leader has already been humiliated and defeated. With a sarcastic smile, the young man claims to be a very reasonable person and shows a bag full of spiritual stones. He throws the 10,000 stones at the face of his fallen opponent, saying that this will serve to pay for his medical expenses. The disciples are impressed by the hero's arrogance, but admit that he has become much more attractive and powerful. The system notifies that the donation generated a return of 100 times the donation, and the young man receives 1 million spiritual stones back. Chu Jiaran begins clapping ironically as he walks towards the hero with a predatory look. She seductively touches Zhao Mu's chin and confesses that she's starting to like him more and more. The villainess promises to give him everything he desires if the young man decides to abandon everything and return to her side right now. But Lu Qi intervenes at that moment, releasing her blue aura and placing herself between the two to protect her beloved. With a firm and authoritative gaze, the young woman asserts that her rival is not worthy of having someone like Zhao Mu by her side. Chu Jiaran becomes furious at the audacity and unleashes her purple energy, asking if the girl has truly lost her mind. The atmosphere becomes extremely tense as the two powerful women face off, ready to begin a new duel. Lu Qi warns that the boy is a free person and not a commodity that can be discarded after being used as a tool. She points her finger and vows to surpass her rival's ranking on the path to heaven so she can challenge her fairly in the future. The girl holds the young man's hand and vows to avenge every injury the villainess has inflicted on him in the recent past. Zhao Mu praises the senior's heroic attitude as they walk towards the mystical portal to begin the test. The two enter together into the beam of purple light, disappearing from the sight of all the disciples who were observing the confrontation. Left behind, Chu Jiaran screams in hatred and vows that those two bastards will pay dearly for such humiliation. She clenches her teeth, consumed by fury, and vows that their life within the cult will be a living hell from now on. Everyone knows the competition will be fierce since Lu Qiu possesses a noble status and is not inferior to her rival in beauty or power. Some disciples enviously comment on how the hero managed to attract the attention of two of the sect's greatest beauties. Meanwhile, the scene changes to the Nine Dragons Sword Mountain, a sacred and isolated location of the demonic sect. The genius Long Tianxiang appears meditating amidst a powerful purple aura while wielding a giant sword. He slowly opens his eyes, revealing an extremely cold gaze and a spiritual presence that intimidates anyone. The boy demonstrates his complete mastery over the mystical weapon, making it float and execute precise movements in the air. He continues his meditation, focused on reaching a new level of power, while the energy around him continues to vibrate. Satisfied with the training, he comments that the progress is only reasonable and prepares to receive a visitor. A subordinate rushes over to report the latest gossip circulating throughout the outer sect. The man says that Luki is showing jealousy because of a handsome new disciple from the Fox faction. Long Tianxiang rises furiously and unleashes several swords of light, asking if the servant interrupted him for such a trivial reason. He points the gleaming blades at the subordinate's neck, who begins to tremble in fear at such aggression. The servant desperately begs forgiveness and promises to leave immediately so as not to bother his senior master any further. However, the genie tells him to wait while keeping a dark and calculating gaze fixed on the poor fellow. The subordinate bows again, asking if his superior has any other special commands for him to carry out. Suddenly, Long strikes the man in the chest with a burst of energy, causing him to scream in pain. The servant is confused and frightened, not understanding why he was attacked so abruptly by his own master. The warrior orders him to stop complaining and take a good look at the mark that has just appeared on his muscular chest. The man is shocked to see a small sword of light shining intensely right in the center of his chest. Long explains that this is a spark of his sword intention that he himself condensed to be used. He states disdainfully that there are always ants that don't know the vastness of the world and need a lesson. Finally, he orders his subordinate to use that power to eliminate Zhao Mu from that sect once and for all. The subordinate thanks Senior Long for the sword mark that gave him overwhelming power throughout his body. Meanwhile, Zhao Mu and Lu Qiu cross the mystical portal of the Path of Ascension to begin the official test. The girl explains that he will be separated from her during the climb because the path records the individual performance of each person. Zhao Mu notices that his senior is acting very strangely and asks if something has happened to her. Suddenly, she pulls the boy close and gives him a passionate kiss, leaving the young man completely paralyzed and speechless. Lu bids him farewell with a loving look and warns him to be very careful throughout the challenge ahead. The young man smiles mischievously and says that actually she is the one who needs to be cautious about the dangers of the place. Now alone, the boy walks through the dense white fog of the first floor, ready to face whatever comes his way. Suddenly, gigantic shadows begin to form around him, and the hero realizes he is no longer alone. A colossal demon rooster emerges from the shadows, displaying its red eyes and a rather intimidating presence. Immediately afterwards, a fierce and hungry wolf appears, growling and baring its sharp fangs at the challenging young man. To complete the trio, a monstrous frog with an enormous tongue stands ready to attack the boy at any moment. The three beasts advance together in a coordinated manner, attempting to corner Zhao Mu in the middle of that mystical arena. With a swift movement, the hero leaps and strikes the ground, creating a shockwave that pushes the nearby monsters away. The boy is impressed to notice that the beasts on the first floor already have the foundation level of establishment. One of the monsters transforms into a fast ball of spikes and rolls violently towards the young warrior. Using his divine agility, Zhao Mu dodges the deadly thorns and observes the movements of the creatures around him. Tired of just running away, he decides it's time to launch a decisive counterattack and advance against them. The hero concentrates his firepower in his fist, and the beasts begin to tremble in terror as they feel the scalding energy. With a devastating blow, he strikes the monsters simultaneously, sending them all flying with extreme ease. Zhao Mu observes the defeated creatures and scoffs, saying that the first level was far too easy for him. The system announces that he has passed the first floor and offers 3 valuable reward options for the winner. He chooses the Burning Fame Palm technique because it is compatible with his incredible sacred red young Bodhi. The boy celebrates the perfect choice, knowing that this new manual will greatly increase his immediate attack power. Without wasting any time, the young man begins to cultivate the new technique by absorbing solar heat directly into his body. He feels the energy of the bright sun strengthening his meridians and prepares his palm to test the new power. The hero unleashes a devastating fire attack that explodes against obstacles, proving the effectiveness of his new art. With a confident smile, the boy prepares to climb the stairs and face the challenges of the second floor. Meanwhile, on the third level of the celestial path, an explosion of blue energy indicates that the combat is intense. Lu Kui bravely fights a gigantic monster, using her sword to deliver precise and fatal cuts to the beast. The senior manages to overcome the third floor challenge and approaches to choose one of the rewards offered by the portal. Disciples comment that senior player Lu Q has entered the top 50 and that number 1 Nalalan Chuang is still the local record holder. Suddenly, Zhao Mu's name shines brightly on the notice board, leaving all the disciples present speechless. People are shocked to say that he managed to get into the top 1,000 in record time, right after completing the first floor. Chu Jiaran observes the board with intense hatred and suspects that the two have been practicing dual cultivation recently. Young man with long blue hair walks elegantly, drawing the attention of everyone around him. This is Nalan Chuang, the number 1 genius of the outer sect, who possesses the legendary blood of a Cullen in his veins. Some disciples start gossiping, saying that he's just a poser who relies entirely on his noble lineage. Nalan Chuang listens to the insults and approaches the gossips with a calm smile, but one laden with murderous intent. Suddenly his arm mutates and transforms into a powerful claw covered in shimmering Kulin scales. With swift movements, the genius knocks out the insolent disciples, leaving them bloodied and groaning in pain on the ground. He disdainfully states that he hates when mediocre people talk behind his back and arrogantly continues on his way. The boy approaches Chu Jiaran, asking what she's doing standing there with that unfriendly look on her face. He starts mocking the villainess, saying he heard her pretty face ran off with a much better woman. Furious at the provocation, she unleashes her overwhelming purple aura and screams that he is digging his own grave. The woman attacks furiously, but the genie dodges everything, laughing at her anxiety as the atmosphere grows increasingly tense. Nalan Chuang easily captures the villain's hand, demonstrating that her physical strength is superior to hers at that moment. He firmly grips his opponent's wrist, preventing her from continuing the attack, and taunts her weakness. Suddenly, a monstrous presence appears between the two, and they recognize with fright the powerful and feared warrior Nu O. This is the 8th genius of the inner sect, who has already reached the peak of the core formation realm and seems very angry. Chu Jiaran mocks Niuao, asking if he isn't afraid of the elder's prodigy when he tries to get revenge. The monster replies that received direct orders from Long Tiangxiang and therefore fears nothing while crushing a seal. Nalan Chuang watches the scene with a smile on his face, thinking that all that confusion was worth it. He finds it very interesting to see a novice disciple being hunted by an expert at the peak of core formation. Suddenly, the disciples around them begin to shout and point again to the large notice board of the sect. Everyone is shocked to see that Zhao Mu's name has risen absurdly, now entering the top 200. Meanwhile, inside the tower, the young man crosses a new portal and finally reaches the second floor of the challenge. He uses his palm of blazing flames to confront a giant demon monkey that leaps towards him in fury. After winning, he realizes that saber techniques and common pills are useless against his current level of holy power. The hero decides to choose a mysterious box as his reward, hoping to get something truly valuable this time. The system reveals that he earned a second, tear-flying sword called White Jade Glow that shines intensely. Zhao Mu finds the weapon inadequate, and besides, he needs to find someone to donate it to and activate its return multiplier. The boy moves forward and climbs the stairs towards the purple portal that leads to the third floor of the celestial tower. Upon entering, he encounters an army of monstrous beasts that stare at him with gleaming eyes in the darkness. He understands that most external disciples can only pass through there after achieving core formation. Determined to win, the hero decides to test the maximum limit of his strength and concentrates a huge fireball in his hand. The beasts advance with impressive speed, attempting to crush the invader once and for all in that location. Zhao Mu attacks first, using his flame technique to gain an advantage and strike the nearest monster with force. A colossal explosion of destructive energy occurs in the center of the arena, causing the ground to tremble from the impact of the blow. The young man announces that it's all over, but realizes he's still surrounded by several shadows of ferocious and hungry monsters. He leaps and delivers a powerful kick right into the mouth of a giant alligator that was trying to bite him from below. The boy continues to unleash explosive attacks against the beasts while moving swiftly across the battlefield. The crocodile monster lets out an agonizing cry of pain as its body is struck by the hero's scalding energy. Jamu falls to a seated position, exhausted, but realizes he only suffered minor injuries thanks to the resilience of his sacred body. Suddenly, a giant bat and a fish monster emerge from the shadows to launch a new coordinated attack against him. The young warrior unleashes his golden aura and prepares to face the new threats with a confident gaze. He smiles, saying that the challenge isn't bad at all, while mystical energy envelops his entire renewed body. Trusting in his physical resilience, the boy decides there is still hope of getting past that army of monsters. Several fire tornadoes erupt in the arena, burning everything around them as the battle reaches its most intense climax. The hero summons a gigantic creature of flames that consumes the remaining beasts in a true inferno of light. Zhao Mu emerges victorious amidst the wreckage and celebrates, having successfully overcome the challenging third floor of the tower. A soft green light begins to glow around him, initiating an immediate healing process in his open wounds. He realizes that his red young power allows for extremely rapid recovery even after exhausting battles. The young man looks at the illuminated stairs, and besides, he still has enough strength to challenge the fourth floor of the tower. New reward options appear floating around, and the boy analyzes each one very carefully and cautiously. The hero reminds us that pills and treasures obtained there cannot be used within the celestial challenge itself. Thinking about how to overcome the next level, he chooses a new cultivation method to strengthen his soul and mind. As there is no time limit, the young man sits down to master the technique before proceeding with the climb up the tower. Outside, the disciples can't believe what they see and claim that the tower's record has never been wrong in millennia. Everyone panics when they see Zhao Mu's name suddenly jump to 13th place in the ranking. People are shocked that he went from the third floor to the third floor in just a few minutes. Being only a beginner in the cult, Chu Jiaoran bites his lip in anger and wonders what kind of secret the boy is hiding to have become so strong. Nuo scoffs at everyone's surprise and says that a simple ranking of the outer sect means absolutely nothing. The giant states that the warriors of that faction are just a bunch of useless people while staring at the crowd with disdain. Suddenly, someone announces that Senior Lu Qi is emerging from the portal, and everyone turns to see the victorious young woman. She managed to hold on for 15 minutes on the fourth floor and now occupies 9th place, knocking her rival out of position. The crowd celebrates the girl's success, while Chu Jiaran watches everything from afar with a look filled with envy. Lu Qiu taunts the villainess with a victorious smile, saying it's great to be superior to a certain seductive fox. The rival replies that the ranking doesn't matter because Nuo is there to ensure Zhao Mu doesn't leave that place alive. The young woman realizes that the enemy is Nu Ti's cousin and panics, knowing that her beloved is in mortal danger. Zhao Mu concentrates intensely as purple rays begin to envelop his entire body during meditation. He opens his eyes, revealing a powerful electric glow, showing that he is almost mastering the new mystical technique. The boy summons a tangle of purple lightning bolts, unleashing devastating energy currents in all directions of the arena. The force of the blow is so great that the surrounding rocks are completely shattered by the power of the thunder. He reflects on the difficulty of lightning arts and expresses gratitude for his high level of understanding that allowed him to learn the basics. The hero realizes that the attack's range is immense and will be perfect for dealing with multiple enemies at once. After resting a bit, the young man gets up feeling refreshed and ready to continue his journey in the tower. He climbs the stairs towards the fourth-floor doorway, wondering what kind of danger awaits him up there. A shadowy creature with sharp teeth and dripping saliva emerges from the darkness, growling menacingly. A giant leopard with mystical flames on its head appears atop the rocks, observing its prey with icy eyes. Zhao Mu feels an overwhelming spiritual pressure coming from just one monster and realizes that the fight will be difficult. Determined to give his best, he envelopes his hands in fire and prepares for the swift attack of the ferocious beast. The monster moves too fast and lands a violent blow to the boy's chest, causing blood to gush out. Even wounded, the young man tries to fight back and unleashes his palm of burning flames, attempting to strike the agile enemy. A massive burst of fire rips across the arena, but the creature manages to escape the impact with irritating ease. The boy becomes frustrated when he notices that his opponent's speed is superior to his frontal flame attacks. He then strikes the ground, releasing an electric discharge to paralyze the soil and trap the monster in place. Zhao Mu manages to catch his opponent in mid-air and smiles, knowing he has finally found an opening in the fight. The hero concentrates all his strength on a single point and prepares his most powerful blow to end the contest. Surprisingly, the beast changes direction mid-air and escapes the attack, leaving the young man in shock. Zhao Mu reveals that it was a trap and uses his lightning bolts at point-blank range to strike the monster. The impact throws the creature away, but the excessive exertion begins to take a heavy toll on the boy's body. Suddenly, the hero coughs up a lot of blood and feels an unbearable pain take over his entire wounded being. He falls to his knees, completely exhausted, as he watches the enemy slowly recover for the final attack. The young man believes he has reached his limit, but accepts defeat with a sarcastic smile on his bloodied face. Suddenly, the system notifies that he offered himself as bait and activates a 10,000 times return for his sacrifice. An intense golden light envelopes the boy's arm, initiating an absolutely terrifying bodily transformation. He rises fully healed and surrounded by a divine aura that causes the entire structure of the tower to tremble violently. The system proudly announces that the young man has just obtained the legendary and supreme bloodline of the human emperor. Zhao Mu is perplexed to realize that he gained such an ancient and powerful ability through his risky method of donation. He sees visions of a distant past where powerful races fought for world domination over immense dragons. The images show colossal beasts like multi-tailed foxes spreading cows across ancestral lands. Humanity was on the brink of extinction, cruelly hunted by gigantic monsters in a sea of flames. It was at this critical moment that legendary heroes emerged from among the people to confront the tyranny of the demonic races. These specialists pushed their bodies to the limit and achieved impossible victories to protect the human race. Inspired by the vision, the young man vows that one day he will be strong enough to eradicate all invaders from the world. He unleashes an overwhelming column of red energy that illuminates the entire floor with a blinding glow. The monster recoils in terror upon seeing the enormous hole left in the ground by the mere awakening of the boy. With a superior look, the hero asks if the little beast still has the courage to continue playing with him. The leopard roars furiously, trying to regain its dignity before launching into one last desperate attack. The beast leaps with all its might, but Zhao Mu remains motionless, merely observing the enemy's movements. The boy smiles, realizing that his opponent's movements now seem to be in slow motion to his new eyes. He elegantly dodges and prepares a precise counterattack as golden energy flows through his hands. The young man extends his fingers, concentrating an absurd amount of pressure capable of piercing any physical or magical defense. With a swift and fatal blow, he pierces the monstrous beast's body, ending the combat once and for all. Zhao Mu sighs in relief amidst the smoke, victorious after overcoming the most difficult challenge of his life so far. The portal offers 3 new prizes, and the hero calmly analyzes the pill, the spear, and the mystical technique. He decides to choose the pill randomly, thinking of donating it to someone and guaranteeing another return from the system. The boy walks towards the exit, imagining how the other disciples must be reacting to his progress in the tower. Outside, the crowd goes into a frenzy upon noticing that Zhao Mu's ranking has drastically changed again. The notice board reveals that Zhao Mu has achieved first place in the outer sect ranking, surpassing all geniuses. Lu Qiu celebrates her beloved's achievement while Chu Jiaoren watches the scene, unable to believe what her eyes are seeing. Furious, the giant Nuo decides that he will use all his brute strength to obliterate the boy as soon as he leaves the tower. Still within the test area, Zhao Mu encounters a new scenario enveloped in a dense and mysterious purple energy. The hero is surprised to be surrounded by 5 mid-level core formation demons, finding the challenge overwhelming. Realizing he has reached his current limit, the young man raises his hands and decides to end his participation in the tower challenge. A massive blow hits the boy, symbolizing the end of his journey on that floor as he begins to be transported. Zhao Mu keeps a smile on his face, knowing that he has fulfilled his objective and that he will soon return much more powerful. One of the monsters unleashes a final attack with its spear, but the hero's body is already beginning to dissipate in the mystical light. The young man lets out a confident laugh, promising that he will return to challenge them again as soon as he regains more vitality. He faces the portal with determination, assuring himself that it won't be long before he conquers the absolute top. An explosion of golden flames erupts in the courtyard, announcing to the entire crowd that Zhao Mu has finally passed the test. The boy walks triumphantly through the fire and mockingly asks if all those people came just to greet him. Suddenly, the ground explodes in front of the young man as Nuo lands violently, blocking his path in the courtyard. The brute roars, saying that he has waited a long time for this moment, and that now the brat has nowhere left to run. Unexpectedly, both Lu Qi and Chu Jiaoren position themselves in front of the hero to protect him from the impending attack. The two warn that the enemy is an elite warrior from the inner sect and beg the boy to flee from there now. Zhao Mu finds the villain's help strange, but she simply replies that she has her own secret reasons for keeping him alive. Yuo realizes the boy's immense potential and decides he needs to kill him quickly before the elders interfere. The monster advances furiously, ordering the woman to get out of the way, for no one will stop his revenge for his cousin. With a defiant look, the young man announces that the warm-up is over and prepares to test the strength of a formed core. The hero activates his human emperor bloodline and goes for a direct clash against his opponent's gigantic fist. A colossal explosion of golden energy occurs upon impact, sending shockwaves across the entire territory. The disciples are thrown far away and wonder how anyone at the foundation level can withstand such pressure. Nuo is shocked to sense the divine aura emanating from the boy and recognizes the legendary lineage of the human emperor. Holding the massive punch with just one hand, Zhao Mu taunts, saying that in brute strength the giant is no match for him. Irritated by so many secrets, the demonic warrior decides to stop playing games and begins to unleash his true technique. A golden, cross-shaped glow appears on the monster's chest, revealing an extremely dangerous sword intent. Realizing the mortal danger, Lu Qiu screams desperately for the boy to get out of the line of fire of that devastating attack. Nuo smiles sadistically, stating that the brat should feel honored to die under that mystical sword. Zhao Mu focuses all his vital energy to withstand the blow as the overwhelming presence takes over the place. A dragon of flames and light is unleashed upon the hero, who attempts to defend himself from the technique sent by the prodigy Long. In the midst of the collision, the boy realizes that the sword's aim actually belongs to his rival, Long Tianzang. The young man fully unleashes the power of the human emperor, creating a shield of intense fire to avoid being disintegrated. Even suffering under the pressure, the warrior clenches his teeth and refuses to fall, begging his body to hold on tight. A gigantic detonation occurs, raising an immense curtain of smoke and debris that covers the entire battlefield. Liu Kai runs in tears, screaming the young man's name, while Chu Jiaran coldly states that there is no turning back now. The villain laments the failure of her mission, thinking that the boy was reduced to ashes by the force of a nascent soul. The giant Niu-O laughs victoriously, saying that this is the cruel fate of those who dare to offend the important figures of the sect. Liu Qi stares at the sight of the explosion with a broken heart, believing she has tragically lost her companion. Suddenly, coughing sounds emerge from the smoke, leaving everyone present paralyzed with pure surprise and astonishment. Xiao Mu appears, smiling amidst the blood and dust, mocking the supposed strength of his rival's sword intent. With his torso bare and wounded, the hero admits that the blow was strong but mockingly states that he expected something much better. Liu Qi sighs in relief and smiles as she sees that her beloved has miraculously survived an attack that should have been fatal. Furious at the boy's persistence, Niu-O ignites his arms and leaps to deliver the final coup de grace. The senior intervenes with her blade, attempting to block the monster's advance to give the young man time to recover. The brute violently shoves her, telling her to get out of the way if she doesn't want to die along with the human trash. The giant prepares the final punch against Xiao Mu, who is paralyzed while the hero laments the lack of strength in his body. Suddenly, a pillar of overwhelming purple light descends from the sky and crushes the monster against the ground with godlike force. Niu-O screams in hatred and pain, trying to get up while asking who the damned person is who dared to interrupt him. Sanayan Zixuan appears floating in her purple aura and declares that she is responsible for stopping the fight. She faces the giant with authority and asks if he has any objection to her interference. Completely terrified, the warrior Niu-O kneels and stammers, saying that he would never dare to challenge the girl. All the disciples present in the courtyard bow in a sign of absolute respect as the powerful leader lands. The girl confesses to Xiao Mu that she started seeing him in a different light after witnessing his amazing performance. She emphasizes that reaching the top of the outer sect with that level of cultivation is unprecedented in all of history. Unexpectedly, the saint asks if the boy would be willing to accept her as his new and powerful mistress. Suddenly, several red figures cross the sky, indicating the arrival of other important figures from the sect. 3 elders of the human race arrive, arguing amongst themselves about who will have the honor of training the sect's new genius. The disciples become curious about the old men and soon discover that they are the legendary human elders of the place. Elder Zhou Siliang states the saint is going too far in attempting to take the greatest prodigy of the human race. Master Fan Deng, a renowned alchemist, also asks the leader to leave the talented young man under his care. The 3rd elder, Dugujan, offers rare armor and his battle skills to try and convince the young hero. The crowd is amazed to see that 3 of the 4 great human elders appeared just to recruit the boy. They pressure Xiao Mu to make a quick decision, reminding him that strength and expertise are everything in that world. With a rather cheeky smile, the young man asks if it wouldn't be possible for him to become a disciple of all of them at the same time. The 3 masters remain in absolute silence, completely shocked by the boy's audacious and greedy proposal. The saint smiles playfully and says she has no objections, leaving the final decision to the 3 human elders. The elders explain that each path demands total dedication and that the hero should not be distracted by so many different arts. The young man assures them that he will not disappoint them and suggests spending 3 days studying with each of the masters individually. He states that if he can meet expectations in a short time, he will prove that he can handle the 3 teachings. Convinced by the young man's confidence and logic, the elders accept the agreement and decide to seal the partnership right there. The saint takes Niwo away to demand explanations, while Zhao Mu deeply thanks her for the help received. The protagonist watches the girl leave and thinks to himself that, after all, she has a very kind heart. He jokingly shouts that if she needs help with farming in the future, he won't be stingy with her at all. Elder Joe tells him to stop talking nonsense and pulls him with his long beard to begin matrix training. While being dragged away, the boy warns Senior Lu to be careful of Long Tianxiang's potential traps. Lu Qiu bids farewell, and the demon cultivator who kidnapped the hero in the past watches everything with a cold sweat on his face. The man realizes that the boy he captured has now become unreachable and fears for his own safety. He panics upon realizing that Zhao Mu has become a personal disciple and concludes that he can no longer remain in the sect. But he remembers that his family is still there and despairs when he realizes there is no easy way to escape. The subject thinks that since the dynasty from which the hero came is in danger, helping them might be a way to earn forgiveness. The man decides to seek out his father immediately to explain the situation and try to correct the mistake he made in the past. Meanwhile, the young man is taken to Pico da Matras Profunda, a place full of floating islands and abundant nature. Master Joe guides the boy through a mystical purple barrier into his private mountain residence. The old man explains that the valley has thousands of protective matrices, making it the safest place in the entire demonic sect. Curious, the hero asks if the complex matrix of the Path of Ascension was also created by the hands of the Elder Joe. The master humbly admits that not even with all the effort of a lifetime could he create a matrix of such a high level. He reveals that the tower was the work of the patriarch himself millennia ago, and that it is the greatest treasure of the entire institution. Impressed, the young man wonders if the legendary founder actually died or if he simply disappeared over time. The elder recounts that there are rumors about the patriarch having been imprisoned by a powerful faction after discovering a great secret. Zhao Mu feels a chill as he imagines how terrifying the organization capable of suppressing someone so powerful must be. The master says it's too early for such stories and invites him to test his aptitude with the matrices in the cave. The two walk through a tunnel that leads to a hidden underground palace protected by stone lion statues. Beautiful young woman with pink hair appears, calling for her master, and immediately attracts the young man's attention. This is Sheng Yurong, a disciple of the elder who possesses an extremely striking and voluptuous appearance. The protagonist is speechless and thinks to himself that everything about that new senior is truly gigantic. He tries to hide his gaze and feels embarrassed for almost losing his composure in the face of such beauty. The old master introduces Zhao Mu as the new junior brother as everyone gathers in the inner courtyard of the temple. The elder praises the girl's talent with the divine runes, and the boy greets her with a formal gesture of respect. Elder Joe needs to attend to some matters and leaves Zhao Miyu in the care of the beautiful senior Sheng for training. The girl asks the boy to follow her as they walk towards the place where the lessons on matrices will begin. Sheng Yurong stands before a pedestal and prepares a mystical object that floats enveloped in orange flames. She explains that it is a disc of divine runes and instructs the young man to place it between his eyebrows. The senior guides the young man not to use his physical vision, but rather to feel the object's energy with the strength of his heart. Zhao Mu closes his eyes and begins to concentrate intensely, trying to visualize the secrets of that rare item. Suddenly, a gigantic and complex golden matrix manifests in the young man's mind, leaving him completely surprised. The girl interrupts the process, saying that's enough for today, and retrieves the mystical disc with a movement. Curious, she asks her new junior brother what exactly he was able to see during the viewing. The boy calmly replies that he saw a huge disc full of very strange and mysterious symbols floating. She asks how many symbols he counted, thinking the boy must have some talent for the master to have brought him. Zhao Mu makes a face, as if trying to remember, and admits that he ended up forgetting to count each one calmly. He guesses he saw between 1 and 2,000 symbols, leaving Senior Shang Yurong completely shocked and speechless. The girl is astonished because she only saw dozens the first time, and the boy asks if those were the divine runes. She explains that the divine runes are the hidden power in space that maintains the order of all things in the universe. The senior reveals that she has been studying matrix arts for 30 years and has only managed to master a little over 6,000 runes. The young man wonders if his talent is bad because he has seen so little, while the girl thinks he is showing off. She decides to drop the subject and announces that she will begin the next stage of her mystical training at that location. Shang Yurong focuses his spiritual energy and begins to manifest a special technique before the hero's eyes. The boy asks if that's an illusion matrix, and the girl replies that he can interpret the situation that way. She explains that with her current strength, she can use the disc feet to create scenes that mimic the reality around them. Suddenly, the senior lets out a groan of pain and begins to lose her balance, demonstrating extreme and sudden fatigue. Zhao Mu acts quickly and catches the girl, holding her by the waist to prevent her from suffering a dangerous fall to the ground. She breathes with difficulty and reveals that manipulating the divine runes requires an absurd amount of spiritual power. The girl steps back a little embarrassed and says she's feeling better, asking him not to worry so much. She confesses that despite her talent with matrices, her cultivation is stuck at the peak of foundation establishment. The young woman explains that her purple mansion is damaged, and therefore her veins are unable to gather the necessary energy. The boy hears that only a rare 8th grade pill could save her and begins to plot a clever plan right there. Xiao Mu nods cheerfully and says that perhaps he can help her obtain that highly valuable source-gathering pill. With a mischievous look, the young man asks how the beautiful senior plans to reward him if he actually keeps his promise. Desperate, she vows to do whatever it takes to get the money and obtain the items she so desperately needs. He reminds her that an 8th degree object is not something one can simply buy with gold anywhere. The young man maintains a confident smile on his face as he observes the hesitation and nervousness of his new partner. Overcome with determination, the girl blushes and declares that she is willing to sell herself to him in exchange for the pill. Without wasting any time, Zhao Mu firmly grasped the senior's hand, sealing that unusual agreement between the two cultivators. The boy joyfully celebrates the deal while the poor girl is visibly embarrassed by the sudden situation. Yurong sighs thoughtfully and begins to wonder if she hasn't fallen into a trap set by that cheeky boy. The hero then offers her some 5th degree pills to test while he prepares his grand system trick. The girl sighs in disappointment, explaining that items of this level no longer have any effect on her body. Even so, she thanks her junior brother for his good intentions with a kind and somewhat disheartened smile. At the same instant, the system notifies the successful donation and delivers a legendary 8th degree pill to the young man. Zhao Mu gives a grim smile, thinking that now the beautiful senior Shang will never be able to escape his grasp. Suddenly, a deafening roar makes the entire mountain structure tremble, putting them both on high alert. The boy asks what is happening, and the girl explains that the sect's great protection matrix has been activated. With a snap of her fingers, the senior summons her subordinates to understand the reason for that disturbance in the valley. 3 disciples immediately appear and pay their respects to Senior Shang, awaiting her orders in the courtyard. She asks, authoritatively, if they have yet discovered the true reason for the damage caused to the mountain matrix. The soldier reports that vicious beasts attacked 3 different points of the barrier, causing worrying cracks. Found traces of a sinister energy and warned that the Holy Sun will investigate the case personally. As Xiao Mu watches the disciples leave while reflecting on the new dangers arising within the sect, Xiao Mu asks what happened and Yurong explains that it's just demons and evil spirits causing confusion. The boy finds it strange that there are internal problems even though it is a sect that follows the evil path. The girl explains that the continent is divided between humans and demons who have hated each other since ancient times. She explains that the Sate Yuan sect is in a complicated position because it has not been trusted by either side. Zhao Mu realizes that it would be strange if the two races could coexist peacefully in that place. Yurong says she is very exhausted and will go upstairs to rest before continuing her matrix lessons. She advises that he can walk around downstairs, but makes it very clear that going up the stairs is prohibited. The young man watches the senior woman walk away as she slowly makes her way to her private room. Zhao Mu flashes a knowing smile while holding a vial, thinking that soon she herself will be begging him to come upstairs. He decides to use his free time to rest and relax a bit before the next step in his plan. Without wasting any time, the boy takes off his clothes and enters the crystal, clear water of the hot spring he found in the valley. He relaxes in the hot bath and admires how the disciples of that sect really know how to enjoy life. The hero accesses the system to check their progress and the rewards they have accumulated up to that point. He sees that he has 7 million stones, but notes that he will need 100 million to reach the next level. The young man reflects on the threats from Long Tianxiang and knows he needs much more power to protect himself. With a determined look, he clenches his fist in the water, vowing to become strong enough to crush his rivals. Zhao Mu decides that he will begin his new phase of strengthening himself by using Senior Yurong as a starting point. He walks to the stairs and steps onto a golden matrix that shines intensely beneath his bare feet. As the boy climbs up, he encounters several sharp blades floating in the air, blocking the path to the bedrooms. The senior notices the intrusion and asks in an authoritative tone what the young man is trying to do there. With an innocent face, he says he smelled a wonderful perfume coming from above and couldn't resist his curiosity. Yurong appears in the bath and asks if he really thinks she doesn't know what his true intentions are. She warns that the protection matrices on the upper floor are so strong that even a master would struggle to enter. Zhao Mu smiles confidently and says he feels capable of going up and sitting with her for a few moments. He shows the rare pill, assuring that the senior herself will formally invite him in. Impressed, the girl jumps out of the water and uses her power to fly towards the boy, wrapped only in a towel. She lands in front of him, her eyes gleaming with interest at the mystical object the young man is carrying. Yurong immediately recognizes the valuable 8th grade pill and is completely shocked by the discovery. She asks where he got something so rare and tries to pick up the item to examine it more closely. With a sweet look and blushing cheeks, the girl calls the boy her good junior brother to try and convince him. Zhao Mu raises his hand and warns that she can only look at the treasure, but that it is strictly forbidden to touch it. He jokes that if she swallows the pill and then says it was fake, he won't have anyone to complain to. The senior makes a solemn oath guaranteeing that she will only observe and will never try to take his item. Suddenly, the girl's towel slips and falls to the ground, leaving the young hero completely paralyzed with fright. She lets out a cry of shame as the boy hurriedly turns his face away, saying he wasn't to blame for anything. Yurong tells him to stop the nonsense and orders him to follow him immediately to the upper floor of the temple. The young man climbs the steps with a victorious smile on his face, knowing that his plan worked perfectly. He mockingly asks if she will finally allow him into her private quarters. The hero displays the small, glowing sphere, while the girl stares at it intently with uncontrollable desire. She confirms without a doubt that this is indeed the legendary 8th degree origin collection pill. The senior begs him to name a price and says she would sell everything she owns, but the young man claims he doesn't need money. At that moment, Zhao Mu smells a sweet aroma and closes his eyes to savor the fragrance in the air. Intrigued, he asks the young woman where exactly that pleasant and relaxing perfume is coming from. Yurong reveals a mystical plant in a pot that emanates a strong green energy and an intense spiritual glow. She explains that it is a very rare spiritual herb and suggests that they make a trade for the 8th degree pill. The girl claims that when the plant matures, it will become a priceless treasure that will surpass any common herb. She is also offering an additional 50 million spirit stones as a bonus to try and close the deal quickly. Zhao Mu notices the senior's desperation and believes he can gain even more benefits if he knows how to negotiate well. He comments that cultivating such a plant would take hundreds of years, and that they might not even see the result. Yurong worries and bites his finger, admitting that the boy is right about the herb's maturation time. Shang Yurong offers even more benefits to the young man to try and convince him to accept the exchange at once. She puts her hand inside her clothes, leaving the boy completely perplexed and intrigued as to what she is doing there. The senior pulls out a red cloth and hands it to Zamu, who is very shocked and confused by this action. She blushes and tells him to look closely, so he can notice that the item is actually a precious mystical armor. A strong golden light appears, and the boy perceives the immense spiritual energy emanating from that object of defense. The girl explains that it is a 7th-degree defensive artifact that she inherited from her father, and that it can save him from great dangers. Yahello asks if she's sure about the gift, and she replies that she spends all her time studying and doesn't need it. The boy thanks them respectfully and begins to undress to test the armor in the inner courtyard of the mountain. Shang Yurong blushes deeply as she admires the defined physique and excellent shape of her new, strong junior brother. The protagonist notices the senior's shy reaction and maintains a confident smile on his face, knowing his own charm. She tries to hide her embarrassment while he gets dressed and prepares to continue with his plans in the cult. Zhao Mu gives a sly smile, thinking that he can still use the system to multiply the coins he earned from her. The boy returns the spirit stones, claiming he would feel embarrassed to receive so much from her without giving anything in return. At that same instant, the hero's system activates, confirming that his generous return yielded a return of 200 times. He is amazed to receive 10 billion spirit stones and rejoices that he no longer needs to worry about resources. The hero says he felt his energy stirring and asks for a room to meditate while she shows him the way upstairs. Shang Yurong watches him walk away, intrigued, and wonders if the boy is actually a monstrous genius. Zhao Mu enters the room and closes the wooden door, determined to use all the new resources to evolve his cultivation. He sits in the lotus position and commands the system to initiate the immediate refining and strengthening process. A colossal torrent of colored energy envelops the hero's body as he absorbs all the spirit stones. 3 days pass peacefully in the tranquil and isolated valley of the demonic sex protective matrices. Yurong waits anxiously at the dinner table, wondering if her new junior brother managed to succeed in training. Inside the room, the young man continues meditating deeply, surrounded by an immense sea of flames and golden energy. Suddenly, the mystical power surrounding him rises dramatically, indicating that the moment of advancement has finally arrived. He celebrates reaching the 8th foundation level and realizes that the effects of his sacred body are indeed tyrannical. Shang Yurong senses the enormous energy surge in the room and is shocked to realize that he has managed to advance again. Master Zhou enters the room unexpectedly and casually asks how the previous night's experience was. The hero bows with great respect and greets his master, thanking him for the great learning opportunity. Zhao Mu reports that the senior taught him very well and that he can already clearly feel the vibrations of the divine rooms. The old master laughs and says he wasn't referring to training, leaving the young disciple somewhat confused about the direction things were going. He asks directly what the boy thought of Yurong and if he is somehow attracted to the beautiful young woman. The elder warns him not to be surprised and reveals that the girl's family background is extremely important. The master explains that she belongs to the powerful clan of demon bears, coming directly from the sacred forest of the sect. He says that the young woman's father is a legendary expert who wields enormous influence over the entire demon race. The old man says that marrying her would save him years of effort, but Zhao Mu replies that his only focus right now is getting strong. The young man laughs silently, thinking that with the help of his system, he would never give up the entire forest for a single tree. Suddenly, a loud voice shouts from outside demanding that old Zhou hand over the new disciple without delay. Master Zhou complains, saying that the punctual Fan Deng has already arrived in the valley to take the boy his next training session. Before leaving, the master hands over 3 special books and advises him to continue reviewing the arts of matrix making. The two walk together towards the temple exit to meet the impatient elder waiting outside. Fan Deng floats down and asks provocatively if the boy's grumpy face is because he lacks talent with matrices. The alchemist assures that his path requires less effort and that the boy's pure young constitution will aid in the refining process. Shou rebuts the insults by revealing that the young man managed to see thousands of runes on his very mystical attempt. Elder Fan Deng is in absolute shock at the revelation, knowing that this is something unprecedented in the entire history of the sect. Without wasting any time, the old alchemist summons his cloud of golden smoke and pulls the excited boy along to his valley. The two fly off quickly through the skies, while Sheng Yurong watches them, with a very thoughtful look from afar. Holding the mystical pill in her hand, the senior blushes with embarrassment as she remembers her agreement with young Zhao. The hero and his new master fly at high speed until they reach the imposing and beautiful valley known as the King of Remedies. They land gently in the courtyard of the great temple, where magical smoke and the aromas of rare herbs fill the air. Elder Fan Deng asks if the boy has learned any fire techniques, and Jiamu replies that he only knows a little. It all begins when the Elder Fan Deng starts heating a gigantic golden cauldron with a bright yellow flame. The master instructs Zhao Mu to use his fire to heat the cauldron, while he adds the necessary medicinal herbs. Zhao Mu concentrates and unleashes a powerful orange flame that engulfs the large alchemy furnace. Fan Deng watches the scene in awe and realizes that the young man possesses an extremely powerful pure yang flame. The master closely analyzes the energy and realizes that the heat resembles the true fire of the sun itself. He is shocked to see that the boy has an exceptional talent for alchemy and surpasses all expectations. The cauldron glows intensely as mystical energy begins to refine a golden pill within. Fan Deng nimbly reaches out and retrieves the newly created pill from inside the steaming alchemy furnace. The elder laughs happily and calls Zhao Mu a prodigy for having refined a perfect perk pill on his very first try. The old man deduces that he has awakened the legendary sacred body of Red Yang, and the young man confirms the suspicion with a smile. Zhao Mu thinks to himself that his control over the flames is actually still far from perfect. Fan Deng says that doesn't matter because their valley possesses the best fire attribute techniques in the world. He then invites the boy to follow him and choose some combat technique manuals that appeal to him most. They arrive at the scripture pavilion, and the master explains that only the lowest level pills are kept there. The elder makes a mystical movement with his hand, causing several ancient books to float around him with a yellow glow. He presents the earth-level manuals and tells the disciple to choose the ones that most appeal to him. Zhao Mu analyzes the options and realizes he needs to be prudent so as not to try to learn more than he can handle. The young man examines the scrolls of the tyrannical scripture of fire and the art of eternal life that serve for healing and combat. He decides to choose exactly these two techniques and grasp them firmly, demonstrating great determination. Fan Deng approves of his choice, but warns him earnestly not to trust the words of the dangerous Master Du Gushan. He explains that the other elder is very reckless and would be capable of throwing him alone into a nest of ferocious monsters. The young man thanks the master for his valuable advice, promising to keep each recommendation in his heart. Suddenly the door to the great hall opens, and a sweet female voice affectionately calls out to the master. The beautiful Tao Subai appears elegantly dressed and asks if the elder has any new orders for her to carry out. Fan Deng introduces the young woman and says that from now on she will assist Zhao Mu in his initiation into the path of alchemy. As they walk, Zhao Mu asks why she calls him senior, and the girl explains that he is a personal disciple. Tao Subai shows off his new home, assuring everyone that all the clothes and food have already been properly prepared. She says she lives nearby and offers her help for anything he needs, making the young man give a knowing smile. Xiaomu boldly grabs her chin and asks if she would also be willing to warm his bed. He finds it amusing to see how serious she is and thinks the young woman is perfect for receiving some teasing from him. The girl blushes with embarrassment and tells him to stop with the nonsense, while a strong red aura surrounds her. She unleashes a terrifying power and warns that even as her junior, she would be able to easily crush him with just one hand. Zhao Mu recoils in fright as he feels the immense pressure from her and realizes that the senior is already in the nascent soul realm. The two continue walking towards the residence while dust and silence take over the outside patio. Tao Sao Subai regains his calm demeanor and tells him to let him know if he needs anything else at the lodge. The boy enters his new room and is pleased to find that the place is spacious and has everything he needs. He walks to the table and picks up a blue book containing alchemy recipes to begin his studies. Xiaomu reads carefully and realizes that even the first-grade pills have extremely complex recipes. He decides that practicing is much better than reading and resolves to use the opportunity to test his two new techniques. The young man positions himself in front of the cauldron and begins to throw in the medicinal herbs with quick and precise movements. He focuses intensely, activating the fire scripture in one hand and the art of eternal life in the other. The hero directs the green and gold flames simultaneously to initiate the refining process in the furnace. He makes a great effort to maintain absolute control over the intense heat of the two spiritual energies. Inside the cauldron, the herbs melt and blend harmoniously under the heat of the mystical flames. 3 small golden pills begin to float in the air, revealing the absolute success of the alchemy process. The boy collects the result of the refining process, which comes out of the furnace floating, enveloped in a very peculiar yellow goo. He holds the slimy fire creature with a smile, thinking that the shape is ugly, but the refinement was a success. A magical projection reveals that Master Fandeng was observing the young man's entire refining process from afar. The old man smiles proudly, admitting that the boy possesses a genius talent for both matrices and alchemy. The master and another elder comment on Zhao Mu's combat potential and look forward to seeing him in the battle hall. Dugu John explains that humans are very talented in alchemy, but end up being outmatched by demons in physical battles. Fan Deng watches Zhao Mu's projection, hoping the boy will bring fresh air and achievements to human cultivators. 3 days pass in the beautiful valleys of the sect with the young hero focused entirely on his grueling alchemy training. Zhao Mu appears extremely breathless and sweating profusely as he tries to control the immense heat of the flames in his refinement. The young man sits exhausted atop a colossal pile of golden pills, thinking he has practiced enough for the day. He examines one of the pills and is pleased to note that he managed to create several excellent quality items at once. Suddenly, the boy hears footsteps approaching and looks curiously towards the large wooden door of his lodging. The beautiful senior Tao Subai enters the room bringing a bowl of special hot soup to help with his recovery. Xiaomu happily thanks the senior for the spiritual porridge, as she was almost completely depleted of her vital energy. The girl freezes in sheer shock when she sees that unbelievable amount of pills piled up right behind the boy. She asks, shocked, if he really refined all that by himself, and the young man simply confirms it very naturally. The hero eats the soup and comments that its strong, pure young flame makes controlling the heat extremely difficult during refining. The young woman stares at him with a rather suspicious look, wondering if that brat is just trying to show off. She praises his talent, but makes it clear that she is not an alchemist and will not be able to help him with questions on the subject. Zhao watches her, intrigued, thinking that she is too powerful to live in that valley without practicing the art of alchemy. Trying to be friendly, the young man apologizes for his previous provocations and says he would like to make amends with her. He hands over a bag full of rare pills as an apology gift, leaving the senior completely surprised and embarrassed. The boy's system is activated instantly, generating excellent returns multiplied by all the valuable pills donated. The hero celebrates the awards he received and plans to interact even more with the beautiful young woman to make a lot of money in the future. Suddenly, the familiar voice of Master Fan Deng echoes through the place, calling his beloved personal disciple out of the room. The young man greets the elder, who praises the boy's great efforts and rapid progress during the last few days of training. The master warns that the next step in training will be to go to the blood battle hall with the dreaded Dugu Shan. The boy notices that the new master has bandages on him, and the old warrior explains that he had to deal with some armored trash. The elder reveals that the demons in the nearby forest are agitated, and that is why the training outside the sect has been cancelled. Xiao Mu remembers the previous warnings and realizes that the security situation surrounding the sect is indeed dangerous. Dugu Zhan orders him to follow him to the battle hall, and the young man agrees, worried about the recent attacks in the region. The boy bids farewell to the alchemist, who announces he will be going into seclusion and tells the hero to look for Tao if he needs anything. Xiao Mu flies off swiftly on his sword while the two watch the young genius depart with proud glances. The girl tells the master that he has found a rare 10,000-year-old genie, and the elder agrees, laughing smugly. The battle hall has a long history of intense fighting, existing almost since the founding of that demonic sect. The warriors of that temple always bore the great responsibility of fighting off terrible external threats. The sect has only managed to remain strong to this day because of the numerous bloody battles fought in the past. The master explains that while the barrier protects the mountain, his disciples take the initiative to attack the enemies. He proudly states that opponents are completely annihilated before they even manage to get close. The two travel seated on a giant sword, and the hero asks if acting so heroically is befitting of demons. Xiao Mu remembers being kidnapped by disciples of the sect and wonders if that place truly harbors heroes. The master admits that the sect's external reputation is terrible and that the world views them with considerable suspicion. He explains that the clans do not understand the true intentions of the founding patriarch who created the sect in the middle of the forest. The young man is lost in thought, trying to decipher what the ancestors' true plan might be in founding the sect in that location. The elder joyfully announces that they have finally arrived at their destination as the sword descends towards the great temple. From above, the hero observes the immense courtyard of the battle hall, where dozens of muscular warriors practice their blows. A disciple throws powerful punches with furious shouts, while Xiao Mu observes everyone's incredible physical dedication. The boy is impressed by the strong spiritual presence emanating from each of those warriors focused on combat. The two walk through the main hall and approach two imposing figures who await the arrival of the Grand Master. The muscular Xiao Wugi and the beautiful Xing Ziyu bow respectfully, paying due homage to their powerful master. The elder introduces the two as Xiao Mu's senior brothers, who greet them politely with a gesture of respect. Dugu Shan sends Xiao to fetch the sacred bell for the test, leaving his senior brother quite surprised by the sudden order. The old man stares at him seriously and asks if he doubts the immense potential of his new and promising personal disciple. The senior apologizes, startled, and rushes off to retrieve the item, though he shows considerable irritation towards the newcomer. The hero wonders if he ended up offending his older brother, but Senior Xing smiles and says that he just has a bad temper. Xing Ziyu approaches with a teasing smile and says that she has heard about his sacred red yang Bodhi. The senior whispers in the young man's ear, asking if he's also very powerful in bed, and the young man blushes with embarrassment. He says the question is too intimate for a first date, and she bursts into laughter, amused by his shyness. The girl pretends to be sorry and warns that he arrived too late because she is already a married woman and committed to that place. The hero swallows hard and tries to remain calm as he feels his face heat up from so much teasing from the new senior. He asks how she got married so young, and she reveals that she is 200 years old and has already been through several marriages in the past. The senior sadly confesses that she is unlucky and that all 9 of her previous husbands ended up dying very young. Xiao Mu falls into despair, thinking that the beautiful senior is actually a terrible black widow who consumes her partners. Suddenly, the girl forcefully pulls the boy's head to her chest, leaving the young man completely immobile and suffocating there. She asks her younger brother not to be shy and confesses, laughing, that she was just teasing him during that time. The beautiful young woman reveals she is only 27 years old, and the young man gives an awkward smile, trying to downplay her teasing. He is completely confused, wondering if there is a single true word coming out of that provocative senior's mouth. A huge, gleaming structure descends from the sky, revealing the arrival of the legendary Wuji bell, which floats majestically in the middle of the hall. Dugushan reprimands the girl, telling her to stop messing with the newcomer, and she accepts the scolding, lowering her head respectfully. The boy asks what the bell is for, and the master explains that the first great item was acquired in a secret kingdom. The elder explains that the legendary bell is not for combat, but is excellent for accurately measuring spiritual potential. He wants to analyze the boy's bone structure before deciding whether to teach him the art of battle of heaven and earth. The master orders him to use all his strength, and the boy floats before the immense mystical bell, concentrating his energy. Zhao Mu clenches his right fist, concentrating an absurd amount of golden flames to unleash the most powerful blow. With all his physical and spiritual strength, the boy lands a direct and devastating punch against the side of the gigantic bell. A deafening sound echoes through the temple as enormous, circular, golden shock waves spread throughout the valley. All the other disciples training in the courtyard stop what they are doing, startled by the tremendous vibration of the sacred bell. The powerful golden sound waves continue to spread, reaching even the most distant and isolated mountains of the sect. Far away, a mysterious masked and hooded figure remains completely silent in the face of that enormous disturbance. Suddenly, the figure opens its eyes, which shine intensely in a golden and reddish hue, revealing its immense hidden power. The creature thinks that the new human emperor has finally awakened, and that its young mistress will be very happy with the news. But she soon changes her tone and laments that it is too late, because everything has already been decided, and no one can change the predetermined fate. Meanwhile, in the forest of 10,000 demons, several winged and terrifying beasts begin to fly away in panic due to the energy. The powerful demon leader with purple horns looks at the other beasts around him, asking if they felt that vibration. He states with concern that the birth of a human emperor will completely change the fate of the entire Shanwu continent. The other demon generals comment on the change, but say that heaven is already sealed, and that humans have no chance. One of them suggests asking the ancient ancestor for advice, but the other warns that he doesn't have the courage to disturb the terrible monster. A powerful voice shouts, demanding immediate silence, and immediately interrupts the discussion of all the generals who were present. The dragon-horned leader states earnestly that the appearance of a new emperor will never be a common occurrence. He points ahead and orders them to send spies from all factions to investigate the situation on the human plains. In the Blood Temple, Zhao Mu lands gently and asks his master if the result of that test was acceptable to him. Dugushan tries to disguise his surprise by replying that it was mediocre, while thinking in shock about the boy's monstrous talent. Xing Ziyu mocks his senior brother, reminding him that even his test wasn't as spectacular as his new junior brother's. The master decides to stop the aptitude tests and warns that from now on, he will begin teaching him the art of battle personally. The elder explains that this art of combat is not just a set of physical blows, but a warrior's state of mind. He unleashes a terrifying red flame and tells the boy to pay attention to the change in aura, because he will only demonstrate it once. The master concentrates his energy and takes a breath, preparing to unleash the full destructive force of his secret technique. With a terrifying battle roar, a flaming giant of energy surges forth behind the elder, illuminating the entire sacred hall. Zhao Mu watches the process, completely fascinated and breathless, feeling the devastating power of that immense manifestation. The colossal construct of flames rises majestically above the sight, showcasing the true strength of an elite warrior. The fire giant clenches his fist violently, channeling a destructive amount of energy that makes the air vibrate with heat. With a devastating punch, an immense and brilliant pillar of light tears through the sky, parting the clouds and demonstrating legendary power. The elder catches his breath and calmly dispels the technique as the surrounding sky begins to stabilize after the explosion. The master asks if he understood the lesson and explains that the art of combat is a supreme power to reign over all things. The old warrior stares at him with a serious, fixed gaze, anxiously awaiting the boy's response. The master says it's already impressive how much he's learned, but the young man thinks he should have waited to train more. He explains that there is no rush to cultivate this technique as it is best understood through real battles. The elder hands over a blue book and says he has another special technique to rapidly increase his combat power. Yahello asks if the manual is related to the sacred ancestor, and the master confirms that the art was created by him. The old master explains that the manual's potential is immense and can be compared to a celestial-level technique at its limit. The master orders him to spend the next few days focused on practicing the manual, and the boy respectfully accepts the order. The elder observes him closely with an extremely serious look as the young man prepares to begin his training. The master warns the other disciples not to cause trouble for the newcomer, and they agree to his orders. Shortly after, the young man enters a silent room alone, carrying the new book to begin his cultivation. Upon opening the manual, he realizes that even with his great intelligence, mastering such a complex technique will be very difficult. He understands that art is not for direct combat, but rather to amplify spiritual strength by strengthening the meridians. The young man begins to meditate, releasing a strong yellow energy around his body while strengthening his internal channels. Determined, he decides to focus all his attention on seeing how many times he can multiply his energy flow. 3 days pass with the boy completely focused on his isolation while the sect remains in complete calm. Suddenly, he releases an overwhelming spiritual pressure that makes his hair float and the whole environment tremble. The young man creates a small flame in the palm of his hand to test the effect of his fire technique on a smaller version. Then he points his finger and fires the small sphere of flames towards the ground to test its current power. The tiny attack generates a gigantic and destructive explosion of fire that consumes the air and frightens even the boy himself. The impact is so strong that it breaks the magical protective barrier that was active to protect the walls. He is shocked to see that even with the defense activated, the attack caused an impressive trail of destruction in the room. The beautiful teacher appears floating and praises the absurd speed with which he managed to master that sacred art. Suddenly, she uses her foot to lift his chin, and the boy turns completely red and speechless in front of her. She asks if he shouldn't call her senior after passing the tests, but the embarrassed young man calls her master. The girl says she has already spoken to the elder in charge and orders the boy to accompany her out of there immediately. Several energy vines emerge from the ground and suddenly bind the young man, pulling him high into the air before he can resist. A magical, brilliant rift opens in mid-air, revealing a transport portal with a strong purplish light. The boy is thrown through the portal and lands awkwardly on a luxurious red bed in the new room. He gets up confused and looks around wondering where that beautiful woman took him this time with her powers. Then the mistress gracefully lands on the bed right next to him, displaying all her elegance and striking presence. She gets quite close to the boy and asks in a mysterious tone if he knows the real reason she accepted him. The beautiful young woman continues to stare intently at him and demands to know what he really thinks about having been chosen by her. He thinks she definitely wants his special sacred power, but finds it strange that she's asking so directly. She tells him to think very carefully about his answer, while the young man suspects she just wants to keep him under control. The boy gives a forced smile and replies that he was accepted because she saw his immense potential for cultivation. Upon hearing the answer, the beautiful girl simply flashes a mischievous and mysterious smile, demonstrating that she knows the truth. She leans in and agrees mockingly, stating that it was precisely for that reason and no other in the world. The teacher praises his intelligence, and the young man assures her that he will keep his mouth completely shut about the secrets. Satisfied with the answer, she gets out of bed and begins to walk calmly, finally letting the young man breathe. Suddenly, two mysterious maids in colorful clothes approach the entrance, drawing the boy's attention. Two girls with cat ears enter the room, carrying trays with food and drinks to serve the gifts. The mistress orders them to take the young man to his new quarters and give him an access card for the place. In the blink of an eye, the powerful woman disappears into thin air, crossing yet another spatial rift and leaving everyone behind. The boy greets the two cat girls in a friendly manner, but one of them only grumbles coldly upon seeing him there. He tries to strike up a conversation with familiarity, while the shy one asks her sister to be a little nicer to him. The young woman reveals their names and whispers provocatively for him to be gentle when they share the double bed. The other sister reveals that they are puppet dolls, but that they still feel physical pain, and tells him to be very careful. The boy finds the contrast between his proud older sister and his docile and delicate younger sister very interesting. He asks what they are carrying in their hands, and the young woman explains that it is the spiritual flesh and blood of a powerful sacred beast. She recounts that the feast was hunted in the forest and that, since the mistress no longer eats mortal food, everything will belong to the boy. To celebrate, the boy wastes no time and boldly slaps the butt of one of the cat girls, surprising her. The cat girl gets furious at the sudden slap, and the boy wonders if he really needs all that for his body. Yu enjoys the moment with the two sisters in bed as the atmosphere heats up between them during the night. With a dark look, the young man decides to show the girls just how powerful and frightening he can really be. The silhouettes reveal that the boy showed no mercy and completely dominated the situation, leaving both women breathless. One of the sisters complains that he should have been kinder, while young Zhao Mu seems to endure everything calmly. Seated on her throne, the mistress seems to sense what is happening and is visibly bothered by all the commotion. The two maids end up completely exhausted and passed out on the bed after failing to keep up with the young man's pace. The young man gets dressed and thinks he has already gotten the maximum benefits from them, lamenting that the system forces him to be a scoundrel. He asks about the origin of this holy son and why he is so helpful to the teacher in that place. The girl explains that this Jun Mo spends most of his time away, but always sends valuable treasures when he returns. Mu crosses his arms and scoffs at the situation, concluding that the fellow is nothing more than the mistress's pet puppy. The boy takes a piece of dragon meat to strengthen himself and feels the powerful energy emanating from that rare food. He begins to eat with determination, resolved not to let anyone steal his rewards and his progress in the sect. The young man enters the hall and finds the mistress waiting for him on her throne to discuss the next steps. Without wasting any time, the beautiful woman throws a shiny item to the young man and tells him to catch the gift immediately. Zhao Mu smiles as he realizes he has received several valuable rings and treasures, admiring his master's generosity. He formally thanks her for the reward while she states that it's all just payment for her effort. The mistress says that his enemy was punished and that the wedding planned by one of the elders will have to be postponed for now. The boy realizes seriously that not even the Master Sir's position is strong enough to shake the status of his rival. She advises him to accept this outcome for now, and the disciple respectfully agrees with her decision. With a clenched fist, the young man vows to himself that he will find a way to personally avenge this great humiliation. The teacher observes him with a penetrating and enigmatic gaze, seemingly amused by her pupil's silent determination. She tells him to leave but demands that he return to visit her at least 3 times a month without fail. The beautiful woman warns him in a cautionary tone not to die before she manages to drain all of his life energy. Zhao Mu gives a final bow and withdraws from the scene, maintaining his composure in the face of his master's provocative words. The boy walks up the stairs of an isolated cave while planning his next steps within the organization. He stretches excitedly and thinks that the moment to receive the system's great rewards must not be far off. The young man surveys the mountainous landscape, determined to choose a good place to build his own farm. Suddenly, a loud voice tells him to stop immediately, and the boy looks back curiously to see who interrupted him. A demon girl with horns and cowgirl clothes appears running towards you with an expression of pure rage. Zhao Mu sighs warily, wondering if the demons of the new clan will ever stop appearing to bother him. He confirms her identity and calmly asks what her relationship is to the prisoner Nu Ao. The girl introduces herself as Nu Yulin and reveals herself to be the younger sister of the man he helped send to prison. She screams furiously, saying she will never forgive him for locking her brother in the hall of 1,000 demons of the cult. The boy interrupts her with his hand and warns that private fights between disciples are serious crimes punishable by death. Without backing down, the young woman pulls out a challenge card and says she will face him in an official duel to clear her family's honor. She proudly displays the battle invitation, but Zhao Mu just stares at her with a completely disheartened expression. He explains that she is only an inner disciple, and therefore does not have the right to challenge a personal disciple. Hearing this, the girl begins to cry desperately and complains that he is a bully who mistreated her brother. Zhao Mu recalls that it was Nu Ao who started the provocation against him when he was still just an outer disciple. He points his finger and says that more than 1,000 people saw her brother being the aggressor and asks who the villain is now. Nu Yulin is utterly embarrassed when she realizes she acted impulsively without knowing the full truth about the fight. Completely embarrassed, the girl bows deeply and sincerely apologizes for her brother's foolishness. The boy observes the scene with a discreet smile and thinks that the little girl is very naive and easily deceived. She sadly asks what she needs to do for him to forgive his brother's actions and accept him as a superior. Zhao Mu makes a scene, saying he almost died in the attack and asks how he could accept a simple apology now. The young woman becomes desperate, feeling the weight of guilt, and begins to beg for a chance to correct her family's mistake. She assures him that she will do anything he asks, no matter what it is, as long as he accepts her request for forgiveness. The boy states that words alone are not enough and picks up a brush and parchment to record the agreement. Zhao Mu makes the girl sign something important while she bows, unaware that she has just fallen into his trap. Nu Yulin bends down to sign the scroll, while shouting with determination to seal the deal with the boy. She shows the signed contract guaranteeing that she always keeps her word, while Zhao Mu finds her easy to deceive. The young man says he needs a maid for household chores, and the girl is surprised by the request. Zhao Mu stares at her disdainfully and asks if she perhaps doesn't want to accept the new position he offered her. The young woman explains that her demon clan is very important and that being a servant would bring great shame to her family. He realizes he'll need to offer some kind of incentive, convince the girl to work for him now. The boy asks what she likes to do most while mentioning that her greatest pleasure is eating good things. Zhao Mu uses his ring and conjures up a gigantic mountain of dragon meat, leaving the girl in complete shock. Her mouth waters when she realizes that all that food is pure, high-quality, flooded dragon meat. The young man offers her that entire mountain of meat if she agrees to be his personal maid, and the girl swallows hard. Nu Yulin immediately kneels, promising to grant him any wish in exchange for all that divine food. He lifts the young woman's face and asks what she should call him from now on with the new servitude contract. Completely surrendered and blushing, the girl calls him master as she accepts her new position as his personal servant. Zhao Mu tells her to store all the meat and help him organize his new dwelling inside the sect's cave. The system notifies that the gift has generated a return of 2,000 times and delivers true dragon meat to him. The boy announces he will go into seclusion to train while the girl revels in her pieces of meat. Zhao Mu's dwelling inside the mountain now boasts an imposing entrance and is ready for his long cultivation. He begins to meditate, feeling that although he is strong, his combat techniques are still very limited for now. The young man decides to focus on developing new combat formations, starting from the basics to improve his level. Zhao Mu focuses on wind formation, which requires the inscription description of 36 divine runes to function. A great blue glow appears on the ground as spiritual energy begins to spin with frightening intensity. Outside the cave, Nu Yulin walks calmly when she notices the arrival of her senior sister Shang carrying books. The senior asks who she is, and the girl proudly explains that she is now Master Zhao Mu's personal maid. The pink-haired girl gets annoyed when she notices that the boy attracts women everywhere he goes. She says she brought more training books for him, and the little servant asks to be followed inside the place. The two are caught off guard by an enormous surge of energy that begins to emanate from the depths of the cave. The senior is shocked to feel the powerful fluctuations of the divine runes that the boy is manipulating inside. Zhao Mu concentrates fully and manages to complete the wind formation without needing to draw any physical runes. An extremely powerful gust of wind is suddenly released and strikes the two girls with violent force. The girls scream in fright as the impact of the wind tears their clothes and throws them against the cave floor. The boy watches his creation floating in the air, but is confused by the sound of screams he heard coming from the entrance. He wonders if a simple, basic wind formation should have as much destructive power as he has just witnessed. Zhao Mu notices the presence of her senior sister and greets her calmly, while she appears to be very bewildered. The young man says she arrived at the right time because he believes there is something very wrong with the books she gave him. He shows the manual explaining that he followed the instructions, but the wind technique turned into a cutting blade. The senior woman turns completely red with embarrassment and desperately begs him to wait a moment before continuing. Before any explanation about the formations, she demands that the boy get her a new set of clothes. Zhao Mu hands over a change of clothes and apologizes, saying he was so focused on training that he didn't even notice her condition. The system notifies that the gifted clothing has generated an epic return of 100 sets of supreme speed armor. The boy is incredulous when he sees that the legendary armors are actually just tiny pink lingerie. Already dressed, the senior asks to see his training plaque to understand what caused that wind explosion. She analyzes the blue glow and finds it very strange that something basic has become so destructive in his hands. The girl tells him to go outside to test the technique again and confirm if the effect is repeated in the field. The young man releases his energy outdoors, and large currents of air begin to swirl forcefully around his body. The technique manifests itself with absurd power, cutting through the air and creating a trail of destruction across the courtyard. The senior woman is speechless and asks how he did that, while the young man says he simply followed the instructions in the book. She suggests he try the fire formation and tells him to observe her movements to learn the right way. The girl focuses her energy in her hands, creating a circle of intense flames to demonstrate the technique to the disciple. She fires a concentrated pillar of fire toward the target, showcasing the true power of a master of formations. After finishing the demonstration, she faces the boy and challenges him to try and repeat the flame-making process. Zhao Mu concentrates to create the fire formation, and an orange glow begins to emanate from his hands. He launches the attack against a stone block, and the flames consume everything with terrifying intensity. Senior Shang watches the scene in utter shock and wonders how this could be possible for a beginner. The boy asks the reason for the astonishment, and she concludes that the problem lies not in the technique, but in Zhao Mu himself. She tries to understand if his sacred body influences the formation, but notes that the wind shouldn't have that power. Suddenly, the girl pulls the boy close, and he becomes awkward, saying that men and women shouldn't act like that. The senior explains that she will draw the runes directly on her own skin to feel the difference in energy. The boy hesitates, embarrassed, as she loses patience and orders him to hurry up with the procedure. Carefully, the young man touches the senior woman's skin with his flaming finger to begin inscribing the magical runes on it. The girl reacts intensely to the touch, feeling waves of heat and power coursing through her entire body. Zhao Mu remains focused on his work, while the flames dance around them during the experiment. The senior lets out a cry of surprise and pleasure as she feels the overwhelming force of those runes being engraved. He finishes the process and asks if she noticed anything wrong while trying to hide his red face. Gasping for breath, the girl reveals that the runes he drew are much larger and thicker than hers. The boy is shocked and asks if she's just playing some kind of dirty joke on him. She explains that the runes are a form of power, and the thicker they are, the greater their strength. The senior believes this is related to the legendary human emperor lineage that runs in his blood. The little servant New Yulin appears, smiling, and asks if the master would like to take a break to eat something. The young man looks at the senior, awaiting her reaction, while the atmosphere between them still seems quite tense. The girl warns that he has already angered the demon clan and that he will soon have to face life or death challenges. She calls him a pervert and complains that he got her into a big mess with his extraordinary abilities. Several dishes of succulent and well-prepared meat are placed on the table for the recovery feast. The maid presents the meats she prepared, and Zhao Mu praises her work, finding everything very good. The senior is amazed to feel the immense vitality and spiritual energy emanating from each piece of meat. He explains that it is flooded dragon meat and that he ended up receiving it as a special gift from the mistress. The girl jokes that if he were a woman, he would be a saint, and even suggests a pill to change gender. The boy is horrified by the suggestion and begs her to stop saying such absurd and ridiculous things. The senior stops joking and says that she came there because she has another serious and important matter to discuss with him. She pulls a mysterious little bag from inside her clothes and places it on the table, drawing the young man's attention. The girl reveals that the master brought billions of spiritual stones to help her on her difficult path of cultivation. The place falls silent for a moment while the boy processes the enormous amount of resources he has received. Zhao Mu looks at the treasure before him, realizing that he will now have everything he needs to become stronger. He thanks her emotionally because he was worried about the lack of resources, and she says she's just following orders. The young man asks if the teachers have been very busy lately, since he hasn't seen them at the sect in a while. The senior woman recounts that they entered a dangerous mountain range due to a very complicated situation there. He realizes that things are far from peaceful in the demonic sect and that major conflicts may arise. The girl decides it's time to leave to consolidate her own power after the lessons she learned from him. Zhao Mu invites her to eat more, but she refuses and sternly warns him to be careful about what he does. The boy waves goodbye as she leaves the cave, promising that she might return another time. The little servant continues serving the food with dedication, while the young man enjoys his moment of peace. He comments that his shoulders are aching after spending so much time focused on studying the arts of formations. New Yulin offers to give a massage, and the master accepts the gesture, finding her a very sensible servant. The young man asks if she doesn't feel wronged by having to serve him in such a submissive way. The girl replies that she will do anything as long as he forgives her brother for all his past mistakes. She adds that the master treats her very well, and that giving her dragon meat proves his great kindness. Zhao Mu caresses the young woman's face and says that she is indeed a good servant, gaining her trust. He hands her a small bag as a reward for her loyalty, and the cow girl is speechless. New Yulin begins to cry with emotion upon realizing how generous and caring her master is towards her. The girl hugs him tightly while he tries to calm her down, saying that crying doesn't suit her face. The system indicates that the given data generated a return of 100 times, delivering 380 billion stones. The young man announces that he will prepare to enter a secluded cultivation area and asks the servant to tidy up the entire cave. The girl readily agrees as Zhao Mu states that his speed of evolution is beyond imagination. He playfully slaps the girl and enters his private room to begin the leveling process. Zhao Mu orders the system to release the spirit stones to begin his strengthening training. He is confused to see only a few crystals floating and questions the disappearance of the billions of promised stones. The system explains that the excess of resources caused an automatic conversion to extremely high-grade stones. Although he finds the exchange rate absurd, he is reassured to know that the total amount of energy has not changed at all. The boy accepts the situation and begins to absorb the pure energy emanating from those rare floating blue crystals. One of the spirit stones shines intensely, releasing a powerful aura that fills the entire cultivation area. Yahello plunges deep into his meditation, feeling his power overwhelmingly increase with each passing second. Sometime later, the little servant girl appears with food and wonders if she should interrupt her master's long isolation. Suddenly, a blinding light escapes through the cracks in the door, indicating that the evolutionary process is ending. The girl lets out a cry of surprise as she is hit by a shock wave coming from inside the young man's room. Amidst the clouds of spiritual energy, Yahello's imposing silhouette emerges, revealing his new physical form. He leaves the room shirtless and shows off his defined muscles, while praising the effectiveness of the high-grade stones. The servant is amazed to realize that he reached the 9th level of the foundation at a truly astonishing speed. The boy notices that all resources have been consumed and realizes that he will need to obtain more stones to continue evolving. He inquires about the regular distribution of items from the sect and discovers that he can pick them up in the disciples' courtyard. Yahello decides to use his personal disciple card to gather new resources and solve his current problem. He emerges from the cave engulfed in flames, while the little servant girl promises to prepare a feast for his return. To speed up the journey, the young man consumes a 7th-degree pill that drastically increases his flight speed. He swallows the mystical item and feels the immediate effect coursing through his veins and propelling his body upwards. A powerful, greenish aura surrounds the boy as he takes off toward the center of the sect with extreme agility. On the way, he decides to make a detour to visit Senior Luke and see how she's been doing lately. Upon approaching the girl's residence, he notices strange activity and decides to investigate what is happening. The young man sees several guards watching the place and realizes that the situation there seems to be much more serious. Yahello concludes that the senior officer was placed under house arrest and is suspected of retaliation by her political enemies. He notes that there are over 50 elite growers guarding the entrance and preventing any visitors. In anger, he realizes that he is not yet strong enough to face so many powerful opponents at once. With nothing to do at the moment, he changes his route and flies away, determined to focus on strengthening himself. The boy laments his friend's situation and silently asks her to hold on for a few more days. With a serious and fixed gaze, he begins to plan how he will rescue her once he reaches the next level. Yahello vows to return to save her as soon as he reaches the core formation realm and becomes unbeatable. He finally arrives at the disciples' courtyard, where a great commotion takes over the entire main scene. The young man lands gently on the stone ground, drawing the attention of some curious onlookers in the area. He observes the crowd and notices that the atmosphere among the other members of the sect seems quite tense. Some boys complain of bad luck after losing valuable artifacts in recent battles against demonic beasts. The group discusses the increased monster activity in the forest and the difficulty of completing the given missions. Yahello realizes that the chaos in the demon forest has already begun to affect even the most ordinary disciples. Suddenly, a brute bumps into the boy and orders him to get out of the way in an aggressive and overbearing tone of voice. The young man simply stares at him with a cold, analytical look, showing no sign of fear in the face of the provocation. The bullies recognize the boy as the new personal human disciple and begin to mock his privileged position. A woman mocks him, saying he climbed the social ladder using his looks and offers him spiritual stones in exchange for favors. Another disciple laughs and warns them to stop the insults before the boy cries and goes to complain to the elders. Yahello remains perfectly calm and asks in a somber tone if they've finished talking nonsense over there. A red, murderous aura explodes from the young man's body, frightening everyone around him in the courtyard. With eyes blazing with fury, he orders everyone to get out of his sight if they don't want to die that very instant. The aggressors are furious at the human's audacity and invoke the name of their powerful master in an attempt to intimidate him. Yahello flashes a sarcastic smile and calls the group of pet puppies to his great rival Long Tiangxiang. The boy extends his hand and says that his hands are itching for a good fight and decides to have some fun with them. A dome of green energy appears in the courtyard, isolating the boy and the three aggressors for the start of the fight. Yahello flashes a confident smile and says he wants to see what these little demons are really capable of. The demons advance furiously, shouting that a mere cultivator of the foundation is asking for death by challenging them. The snake woman opens her bizarre mouth and launches her enormous tongue in a direct attack against the young man's face. The boy easily dodges and comments that demons remain merely inferior and despicable beings. With a swift movement, the young man grabs the creature's tongue with his hands, showing that he is not intimidated in the slightest. Yahello activates his purple lightning technique, while his eyes gleam with a terrifying bloodlust. The demon woman lets out a scream of agony as she is electrocuted by the boy's powerful energy discharge. The other disciples are shocked to notice the absurd difference in power between Yahello and the veteran warriors. Even wounded, the snake woman gets up angrily and warns the boy not to get so cocky about his strength. She attempts a desperate new attack as a purplish energy begins to circulate erratically around her. A gigantic serpent's tail violently strikes the ground, creating cracks throughout the sacred courtyard floor. The young man observes the massive attack from above as dust rises, and the creature reveals its true monstrous form. The crowd believes Yahello was crushed and comments that no one would survive a direct hit of that magnitude. To everyone's surprise, the boy lands a devastating punch on the beast's tail, causing blood to spurt everywhere. Yahello demonstrates superhuman physical strength by holding the creature's giant member using only brute force. With a powerful spin, the young man throws the demon woman to the ground, causing an explosion of earth and rocks. Viewers tremble with fear as they question whether the boy is truly human or some kind of monster in disguise. Fallen and humiliated, the woman orders her allies to kill him immediately without regard for the laws of the sect. One of the demons assumes a diabolical expression and vows to accept any punishment as long as it gets rid of the boy. The two warriors activate the massacre formation, and an aura of intensive fire begins to burn everything around them. A huge flaming beast emerges behind the demons as they prepare for the final attack against the young man. Yahello decides it's time, take the fight seriously, and places his hand on his chest to concentrate his sacred power. His hands glow with a golden fire far more intense than any ordinary flame ever seen in that courtyard. The two powers collide in mid-air, generating a blinding flash that forces everyone to close their eyes because of the brightness. The boy withstands the impact of the enemy formation without suffering a scratch and flashes a provocative smile at his rivals. He asks what would happen if he doubled the power and unleashes two gigantic fire lions against the attackers. An old man appears shouting for the young man not to kill them, but Yahello already has his attack charged in his direction. The boy ignores his superior's request and coldly says that it's too late for any kind of mercy now. A colossal explosion of flames consumes the three demons, turning them to ashes in a matter of seconds. The smoke begins to clear, revealing the courtyard completely destroyed after the deadly confrontation between the cultivators. The old man observes the remains on the ground and shouts furiously at the boy for the trail of destruction left there. A massive demonic creature confronts Yahello and states that he will pay dearly for the deaths of the three inner disciples.